I was quite surprised. We're starting off at a very high number, just the rollover budget. So this just reflects no kind of review of that. And so I did send out an email earlier this week to all department heads to look at their budgets again. We're at a 4.2% rollover budget. That's not including any additional budget requests. Obviously, that's a very high number to start with. So I've asked the staff to go through and look for opportunities for budget reductions and cost-saving opportunities. And so they're in the process of doing that now. They will be submitting to me by the end of this week their recommendations for reductions. I'm going to be pulling all that together and also putting together a first selectman recommended budget to the Board of Selectmen in a couple of weeks. It'll also highlight some things that maybe are not really recurring things that should be in the budget that maybe we can pay for outside of the budget through appropriation or other matters. So, so this is kind of a document I think that helps understand the budgets and where they are, but you know, there has not been a scrub, so to speak, of really trying to keep the number down. I think we all recognize this is going to be a tough budget year because we have a huge hit on healthcare, unfortunately, and then also things like utilities. I mean, $100,000 increase because of the water rates have gone up. We have to pay for water for our fire hydrants. It costs us almost $100,000 a year. It was $100,000 increase, right? 91. Yeah, $91,000 just to have the fire hydrants active, right? So those are the types of things we kind of got nailed on, and then, like I said, healthcare is one of the big ones. So, so with that though, obviously these are the experts in their department. They can talk through their budgets, and then they do have requests that they want to explain why they think there's important things for their town operations to be successful. So. So with that, it's an opportunity to ask questions. I know a lot of people here are very experienced in those departments. Well, don't feel you have to ask questions to every. I'm sure the staff doesn't mind if they don't get asked a lot of questions. But obviously, if you have questions, ask them. So we were going to try to just go down the order here that's listed in the thing on the back of your. We've got a little schedule here in the back of your binder, and I think. First up, and also pizza is coming at 6 o'clock. So there'll be some food coming, pizza and salad, if those are people here in person are hungry. So I think the first is, first of all, are there any questions by, board members or before we start? No? Okay, great. First up, I guess, is Austin Hall, Director of Beach Recreation and Senior Services.
So I'm going to try to share my screen, but I need something so that I can. So I was just going to share every department.
Okay.
Scott, page 134.
Nice.
One is beach and rec, and 143 is senior. Oh, I'm good now. I think I got it.
What are you leading with?
Go beach and rec first. Yes. So I guess if you flip to 136, you'll see a couple line items that have gone up. The wages for the ground staff, that's contractual.
It's a new contract that the Board of Selectmen just approved for this year, so for the Building and Grounds Union.
And then wages, facility supervision, about 3/4 of the page, way down the page. Increase in minimum wage went from 15 to 15.70, $16 an hour. So that's a big hit that we really don't have control over. So this provides us with a full complement of beach staff, which everyone is concerned about. So we'll have full lifeguards, full gate guards. We pay our lifeguards, a pretty competitive wage. They have options. They are, a very needed commodity throughout the state, and Hammonasset, a mile from us. They have uber local options of where to go. So I put out, a note to the guards a couple weeks ago and had a great response for people coming back. which is very helpful. As well as the gate guards and facility monitor staff. A lot of them will be returning, and as always, we hire some new folks, and then you keep that cycle going. Be happy to answer
Any questions?
questions, concerns.
I mean, I think really there's no major changes in terms of the operations of the department, right? It's pretty much, and then additional, did you have additional budget requests?
There was one in there for,
Oh,
when Academy opens, we need a supervisory position over there, so there was a recreation superintendent for that. So obviously, we won't need the full amount, this coming budget season. But in order to lessen the blow come following year, we put, I believe is it half or a quarter?
maybe it is a quarter.
Quarter,
Yeah.
thank you, of that position to start, 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year.
And this was a position that was presented as part of the original budget for Academy. The thought was, and I did suggest this, I said, well, let's try to ease into it because you're gonna need somebody to, you can't just have the building open, you need to have the staffing kind of ramp up. So the thought was doing a quarter, hiring the person like at the third or fourth quarter of the end of fiscal year to start ramping up. Assuming that the academy is gonna be opening in 2025.
Yeah, and we'll know more, as we proceed through the fiscal year next year, what the status of the building is and if it's, still on track to open accordingly, and then we could adjust if need be.
Once upon a time, grounds maintenance was all one department, wasn't it? It all reported into the same,
Grounds and Public Works.
yeah.
Once, no, grounds used to be under facilities.
Facilities
yeah.
that were to
And
be
then we pulled it out of facilities and put it under beach and rec. Public Works has always been separate.
Do we have any duplication, this, I don't expect you to have the answer to this, between what the school district does for grounds maintenance and what the town does?
But we do the grounds maintenance at the schools, so all the ball fields, we do all that through my department.
So is Public Works just roads?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's the split? So you've got everything green and they've got everything paved?
Pretty much, we do some plowing up north in the side streets and downtown and buildings, but yeah, pretty much.
The school district though does, I think, have landscaping services as well as
They-
plowing,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
And that is contracted out, that's been I've talked about this many times with Billy, but it's something in the future that we could always discuss, but there was a very strong feeling that, you're handling athletic fields, but the hedges around hand high, I think he has a
Yes,
outside group come in, right? And do all that, and plowing, it's all handled through the school district.
So is the town fleet of plows, this is somewhat rhetorical, not suited for plowing the parking lots of the schools?
It is not that, I think it's more of a prioritization and, it's the way it's been done, so,
Maybe we should,
Yeah.
we should put a pin in that.
yeah, and we've
Because-
talked about it in the past, so there was a lot of resistance, to be honest, to try to do that, but it's worth bringing up.
There's gonna be a lot of resistance to this increase too.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So any natural
Yeah.
synergies and shared resources, I
Yep.
think we should be
Yep.
looking pretty hard
I
at.
mean, I know there was some, like, when I first came in, I was kind of like, what? Like, it doesn't make any sense, but there was a rationale behind it. I know we talked about it, I talked about it with Scarice actually a while back, and it just kind of stayed the way it is.
Schools wouldn't be able to get opened up,
In the time frame.
Yeah. so you'd actually have to hire more town people to do this.
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of like, I just remember they really strongly thought you had to have this separate because there's the,
Yeah, Billy's getting
yeah,
promoted and he did text me saying that Public Works does help schools with sweeping parking lots and the driveways. So it's kind of like
Okay.
a team
Team
effort for
effort.
everybody.
but he has an outside vendor do the parking lots, yeah. And he does, and the mowing and the groundskeeping kind of stuff around the school buildings. We can talk to Bill now, but I know this has been, why don't we flag this as a further discussion? Because I went down this path a little bit when I came, but I know they felt very strongly that it really needed to be handled this way, so.
Schools have always been a private contractor.
Yeah,
I agree with what Sam was saying earlier. If my department or Public Works does the schools, and that takes away from the roads and other town buildings at that time, which wouldn't get done in order to get the schools open on time.
There's a lot to do all at once.
Yeah.
Everybody wants it now.
yeah, right. Yeah, you gotta get all those buildings, although we are gonna have fewer locations. So it might be worth just thinking about it again too, because now we've got only 2 locations, well, no, not the new school, we'll have 3 locations. But we'll look into that a little bit again. Any other questions from Austin on Beach and Rec?
I can make just 2 comments.
Yep.
One, Austin did find some savings to reclass to cover that increase. You see a reduction in summer staff wages. And then just a common theme, there are 288 days in this fiscal year, so, hours, 2088 hours. So there's an extra day. So when you have an hourly employee, there's an extra day that's added from last year to this year. So you'll see that as we go through.
Leave you.
This year's.
I know, this year's leap year, but when we count the days for next year, it comes to
Huh.
2088.
Wait, this year?
Because that makes sense.
I think it's because of the weekend, like when you count
the
it
fiscal
work
year.
days, we gain a work day.
So yeah, so if that comes up.
Like 5 of us counted.
Yeah, we all, yeah.
Like everybody took quadruple
Yeah.
checks.
Because I said the same thing, I'm like, well, leap year is this year.
Yeah.
So anyway, just so you know. Next, senior.
So senior services, go to page 142. And I guess if you flip to 143, that's the actual budget page. You'll see that all of the proposed increases are strictly salary based. Except for the printing and binding, that's our newsletter. So the postage goes up every year. It already, and we're not privy to when or how much the increase is gonna be for postage. It just sort of gets sprung on you. And it just went up a couple months ago too. But we know it's gone up every year. You know, it's pennies that it goes up, but it still adds up when you're sending 1,800 of these a month. Adds up.
Has there been any conversation about just electronic newsletters as opposed
So
to?
we do that as well. And every year, a couple times a year, we put out in the newsletter, if you'd like to receive this electronically, please let us know. We ask people when they initially come in. So exactly. So as you and everyone else likes to be able to hold it, look at it,
Yeah.
you know, put it down, pick it back up again. Yeah, we try. We get a few every year, but then the additional people who come in are new. It's, yeah, cyclical.
It's a generational thing too.
Yeah.
For that crowd, they-
I think you're right, Betty. Years, as we go on, in years, people will agree to get it electronically, but not yet.
Talking the 80 plus.
Awesome. Speak to the bus driver wages going up 12%. First line,
That was the hourly rate.
that was the hourly rate.
Last year, we had it low. Now it's about $20 an hour. Sorry, I was.
That's good. So
You could ask Bruce that.
Different bus drivers.
Oh.
He isn't big enough for me to drive this bus.
exactly. So we don't pay enough, and we're in constant. Again, bus drivers, as you see every year, you know, in May or June, August, when people are going back to school. In September, the lack of bus drivers in the state. We aren't competitive like a school bus rate would be. You know, there's benefits to working for the town, obviously. But we try to stay as competitive as we can so we can keep a full squad of drivers going.
Okay, any other questions? And obviously, if you can email and get more details and stuff.
There is an additional budget request for senior.
So you've got a quarter of a person in for the
Beecham, yeah,
but
okay.
do you have any other monies for operating, heat, light, programming, advertising?
So heat and light and all of those things won't come out of the beach and rec budget. That'll be facilities.
Is there something in there?
No,
That's for,
This
it won't
was-
be opening until after this fiscal year. This is just to get the staffing to start organizing the building opening and the programming and all that, so. The building, I think, best case is gonna be the end of 2025, so, and this fiscal year ends June 30th.
so there's the additional budget request for 13,000. This was for additional front desk coverage.
Right, okay, thank you. So right now at senior services, we only have, and we've only ever had front desk coverage from 8:30 to 1:30 every day. So that leaves us 2.5 hours of an empty spot at the senior center. And if you've been there recently or in the past couple of years, you'll know that that front desk area is an extremely busy position, and pulling another staff member for those 2.5 hours, whether it's Heather or Ellie away from doing what they should be doing as their job, makes it extremely difficult. And I've asked for this a few years, well, probably another 5 years going. And it just never seems to fit, but it's a very important position that we have at the senior center, and between the phone calls, the registrations, just the questions people have when they come to the desk, it's hard to manage those hours when we don't have somebody there with the two staff that are in the building. And Heather, is constantly meeting with folks doing energy and rent rebates and applications, and sometimes has to keep her door open when it's, a pretty private conversation just to see if people are coming to the front desk to help them. It would be, extremely helpful to the day-to-day work at the senior center if we were able to have this in.
So, awesome. So you're pulling, for example, Heather away to cover, and she's a $40 an hour worker as compared to the person who covers the receptionist.
Okay.
So her time would probably be better spent doing what she's supposed to be doing.
Yes.
I don't like that she has to leave her door open for a private conversation, do that. Bonkers.
It's just, that's what it comes to in order to at least see people approach the desk and be able to, then she has to say, hang on one second, go out to the front desk and or answer the phone. It's tough.
Okay. That's it for Austin, and feel free to email him with additional questions. We'll keep it moving, because
So if people online.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm sorry, I'm ignoring the online people,
Good to be
so
first.
any questions online for Austin?
No questions here.
He's already out of the room. He ran.
I'm sorry, I'm not being sensitive enough to the.
Did John have a question?
I do not. Thank you.
I'm good.
Okay, feel free to yell out, guys, if we're ignoring you. I
So raise
apologize.
your hand.
Yeah, Picard's on too, so.
Yeah, maybe raise your hand if you have a question, just so we see it.
Yeah, because like you guys are little boxes. We don't even see you right now.
Raise our hand, you got it.
No
Okay.
problem.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, the economic development, we're not gonna do that anymore. We kind of moved some of those monies over to land use, so we'll cover it now. So
Yeah.
we go right to facilities.
Yeah.
Cranking through this agenda. Oh,
Page 94. Scott.
Thank you.
Billy should be on.
Yeah.
Okay. So Billy's on.
Yep.
Bill, you're up.
I'm up. I'm ready.
Do it. I'm ready to grill you, Billy.
Oh,
I'm ready.
Peter.
I know that Peter's on too, so maybe we should put Peter up and I should introduce him for those that haven't met him yet. I prepared the budget. Peter will be stuck with it once you approve it. I have to say that we increased the water. I heard you already talking about that. The water company told us what the increase was planning on being. We put that in. Our utilities gas is flat, and the electricity is up 4%. Those are the only increases other than that's it. Other than wages. I don't do the wages. I'm sure there's in the town side there's only my position and the construction manager and an administrative person. So I assume they went up some modest percent, but I didn't put that in. And I'm sure that the HR department could help me out with that.
And I will say on the electricity, we do hedge our electricity. We were really lucky to have some low prices, and then we're rolling off of that contract and going into another one for next year. So that's why you see a little bit of a bump, going into the new contract.
I calculated the increase in the contract price and the amount of electricity that we use, and I added that in, as well as I estimated with our help of our consultant, I estimated what we have guesstimated for the Eversource charges.
Right. And I think that, with all the new buildings coming on, 2025 is going to be, this will be fine through this fiscal year, but the next fiscal year, there's going to be a lot of, buildings rolling on and rolling off, and we weren't really able to do as good a job on the contracts because of this big transition year coming up. So, so hopefully we won't see.
I agree. So everyone can see Peter Anderson. He is started already, and he is taking my place. I wish him a lot of luck. I think he's already been on board a couple of weeks and already been a big help. So I just wanted to introduce him in case everybody didn't know who he was.
Welcome, Peter.
Hi, how are you? Honored to be here.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Because I gotta go back to that. I'm just trying to figure out the best. That's a little better. Is that better or not?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
well, do we need the on-screen or the people opening it?
I don't know.
Everybody has a budget, that way at least we can have everybody on the
Yeah.
screen. Are you guys needing the on-screen sharing of the budget, or is it?
I can see it. We can see it. I can see it. Peter, can you see it? Yep.
Because otherwise.
Yes, I can see it.
And then we can see the whole gallery of people.
You
Everybody.
don't have to have it on my account. I have it in front of me as well on paper.
What about board members?
Board members.
We can see it.
You're asking me.
I have my binder with me. I'm good.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing then and then just yell if you need me to share something.
I can see it. I have one in front of me anyways.
You have your own, John?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a little better.
Yeah.
I do. Thank you.
All right. Okay, great. So I don't know if there's any other questions on that. It's utilities and it's pretty much and some wages. So so if everybody's good, we can move on to the finance department, which is always a problem.
Always a problem.
Yes, we heard last night you're very argumentative, hard to work with.
We are in trouble.
Okay.
Cutting costs with
Yeah.
tabs.
Lots
Yes,
of water
we
going
are.
on in that department.
You're saving the town money.
Exactly.
Efficient.
So page 82 is the assessor's office. They're pretty busy tonight, so I gave Ora the out. She doesn't have any additional budget requests. We're working on finalizing the grand list that is due to the state by the end of the month, so she was very appreciative, not that she didn't want to come and join us. She was very appreciative that I gave her the out. So on page 82, I think the only thing, the salaries office staff, that's simply COLA and step increases for new employees that we had that are going through the step program. And then the increase in the data processing, that is maintenance. It's basically QDS, which is our tax bill billing side, Vision, which is our appraisal software, and the NADA motor vehicle. They were all contractual increases. Was built into the budget and not considered an additional budget request.
It's a pretty
Pretty
straightforward
yep.
budget, so.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so next, your favorite department, page 71, the finance office. 71, you go, so I think you all know that the finance office is shared between the town and the Board of Ed. So what you see on page 71, town share of the finance office, you see an increase of 42,000. And that is a position that was in the selectmen's office for the grant administrator, that we moved all of that money. So when we go to the selectmen's office, you'll see a reduction. So that's really not an increase in the overall budget. We're just shifting it over. We do have an open position. We did advertise. We didn't get quite what we wanted. And part of the problem is we're so busy that we can't even find the time to try to find somebody to help us. So we didn't go back out yet. And we are revisiting. We've changed that position a few times. We were at the grants. Now we have lovely Kristen who took over some of the grant.
It was a combo position that and I know you've been now kind of having that spread out to different staff.
We've been, yeah, and then because Kristen and other staff in my office has taken on more responsibilities, we were hoping to find an accountant, just a staff accountant. And like I said, we posted, we didn't find what we needed. So we're gonna revisit, we may post again, we may look at other options on how we can cover some of these gaps.
This is something we'll be reviewing in the next couple of weeks.
Yep. Questions on finance? Thanks. Okay, the risk, we're not going, now that we don't have a risk manager anymore, a lot of those, that work shifted over to HR.
Yeah, so HR is now handling risk management. Lucky her.
Yes.
That was a position for Lauren Rhines had stepped in and done.
So then the last department before we get to HR is not last but not least, tax collector's office. And by the way, I did give her an out too, but she wanted to come and spend time with us.
Impressive. You get a slice of pizza.
I'm actually running out after this to go see my niece's concert, so I will miss
Yes.
the pizza.
Nice.
So page 86, Scott.
Is it 86 or 87?
That's the, people are on 86.
Okay.
Your
Good
budget's on
evening,
86.
happy new year, everyone. So the tax office has no additional budget requests for this year. Overall, we have an increase of $9,882. $4,799 of that increase is for our operating accounts, and that is due to contractual increases. You will see the contractual increases under data processing and office supplies. The data processing contractual increases for mailing and printing services, and the office supplies contractual increases is for postage. That's for mailing our tax bills and legal notices, which is required by Connecticut state statute. Everything is pretty straightforward.
Thank
you. Thank you. Any questions?
Oh, that was,
Any questions?
appreciate you coming in. That was,
Yes.
that was kind of like a layup.
So this is your second year as tax collector?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. I'm going back to.
8 years here. Here in the finance office. Yes, we found her.
She got out as quick as she.
I was in finance for 3 years and now I'm on 5 years with the tax office. I go my way too fast.
Yeah.
No questions for me?
So, so we
Yeah.
bumped your overtime budget?
No, the overtime should be the same.
No, so I'm sorry, the prior year.
That was the actual that was charged to the.
Yeah, I want to say we.
The budget stayed the same.
Right, it's been the same.
The budget has stayed the same, but in 23, we only spent 1,000.
This is a great segue into actual versus forecast numbers, which is a line that is always missing when we go through this process.
And you have to remember with our department too, we've had a lot of staff changes.
So my question was gonna be, is it adequate? Is the 5,200 adequate?
I don't know, I haven't looked at the actual, Kristen, you have the actual number?
The actual was $1,000 last
In
year.
23, but the problem is this year, we only have half the year. You know, so that's for
Yes.
last full complete 22, 23 fiscal year. So we'd have to look at the year to date to see where we are this year, but
And I think the staffing changes with,
it was
Maybe
Christina's point now, we
and
have
then
a new
I'm on a
full-time.
second assistant, my first assistant left. So I think all that came into play with a lot of the budget stuff, even the staff development line was affected by that also. I think we had a little left over because of the change.
Yeah,
So far this year, we've spent $675 in overtime.
So it would appear to be adequate.
yes.
Potentially even up.
Yeah, I think that after this year, I'll have a better picture of everything, because Brenda will be here for full year in March. And I've been here, so now there's not gonna be where there's so many
Still
different
trying to
changes.
feel it out with
Yeah.
the new assistant. It could maybe have a potential, you know, saving there.
Even
It was
if
like
it was
that.
even if it was
Yeah.
2,000, like 52 still seems kind of high. But
Well, it's
We'll see.
for overtime for the assistant position and for the summer help,
This summer.
and that's huge.
Yeah, when the first bills go out, but I think, we've talked about in the past, like, also covering, like, if you guys are at a training or something like that, do you have temporary help or do you just close the office? Those are kind of discussions we've had at times
Yeah.
too. So,
Like Jean helped a lot over the summer.
yeah. We did try to use more, that was the other thing we've been doing, is trying to use internal resources more to cover for other departments.
Mhm.
So that's probably some of it you didn't have
Yeah,
to.
and Kristen helped.
I'm like, I did that. too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, yes. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of that. But fair point, things to look at, and if we look at like what's been spent over the last couple of years, so,
very true.
Yeah, but I think that I'll have a better picture of that once we have a full year in,
Full staff.
all the same staff.
Right.
Yeah.
I think to be fair, Christina would like a year with Brenda, the both of them on.
I would love
And I do think
to have her
perhaps
average.
next year we would have a savings. I mean, Brenda is also a tax collector, certified tax collector, so they have a good, strong office now.
I think. Everyone else agrees. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Have fun. Enjoy the concert.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alrighty, page 67, HR.
Hi, Jean. Hi.
Hi. Page 68 is Deborah's HR budget.
Can I just ask real quickly, who's planning on having food? I just want to make sure we never do not. No, you can eat. I just want to make sure. I just want to know, like, you can, no, we need to make you back and board members have to be. So we got 1, 2, you guys.
I'm not gonna survive.
If there is,
2,
that's-
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. How many we order?
We ordered 3 large pies with 36 slices and a half
That should be-
green salad.
Yeah, good, we should be good. Okay, I just couldn't remember, and I was like looking around, there's a lot of bodies here.
You're up, Deb.
Yeah.
I have no additional budget requests. And I was able to reduce 2 of the budgets now that this is my second budget cycle here with the town. So I was able to reduce 2 of them that we have.
So the budget book reads like there was a 17% increase in salary. Is that to one person?
That is the director's salary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we shifted,
We've had
the
some
risk
steps and we've
the
added
risk
risk
of
management to the department.
work went over, for the risk manager went over to the director of HR, and so there was a grade increase. And then, yes, to director.
It's the legal notices, that was something where, because we're not required
We weren't,
to do.
yes.
Yeah, for some reason we had a budget for that. There might have been a requirement for that you had to post positions or something legally.
Yeah, we don't have to do that. And then also for the staff development, which is our tuition line. So if any of our employees are using tuition reimbursement, we were able to take a better look at that based on the number of employees that are using that. And so that's why we're able at this time to reduce that number. It may change if we have a lot more employees that want to participate in that, but at this time, we feel very comfortable in reducing that so that we have some additional savings there.
There's a hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the explanation on the 17% increase on the salary. That's due to,
Yeah, we've had a grade increase to a director of HR this last year, plus additional responsibilities for risk management have been put into that department that weren't there.
okay, thank you.
So Stacy, consistent with when we were going through this all those years ago, when we were seeing these years of big increases because of the steps, are we through the curve now? Would we expect that the rate of increase would settle into a more normal rate?
I think so.
Okay.
So
Yeah, you're still gonna have certain positions, because you have people coming in that some come in at step 1 or step 2.
Right.
But there was that big adjustment where everybody, you had like the lion's share, that kind of ended.
Yeah, we had some pretty funky
Yeah.
years there.
Yeah. Now it's gonna be the new hires, because we had some people come in, and then they're moving up because they're, experience level or whatever. So, as long as we have that kind of compensation or
Yeah, and we try
Yeah.
to hire at like a 3 or 4 to give
Yeah.
somebody the opportunity to learn the job. Get up to that level. So, and when we budget for a new position, if it's vacant, I think we tend to budget at step 3. Hoping that, we can get someone in at the lower, but you will see that increase then in 2 years.
So Deborah, thank you for making those budget assumptions and increasing those 2 line items.
great job. In addition to the time.
Yay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pick up.
Okay, moving on to, town operations.
So with emergency management, we're gonna do that with the fire marshal at the same time. So 123 is emergency management and 120 is fire marshal. 23 emergency management. First. Really, there's no change. There's really nothing.
Yeah, so this,
There's no change.
yeah, it didn't increase that budget,
Well,
Move on.
Okay,
move
thanks.
on. Enough time.
Well, might have to next year, see what happens.
And then page 121 is
Then the increase there I'm asking for is, we had an asset and inventory management system into our software. We're actually changing vendors because vendor we switched to, it's very difficult to get that out. It's like I can't even run a report to say I'm expecting it. It's crazy, you know, and it's, both fire departments use it as well. So with the asset inventory, we'll be able to put the expiration dates of all of our PPE and stuff like that, to be able to keep better track of it. And also gives the finance a better inventory record.
What page is that on?
so that's an additional
This is
budget
additional
request.
funding.
So it's not on page 121. That's what was built in.
Okay.
In the additional budget request, you'll see 6,000.
167.
Yeah.
Oh, I think
Yes. Thank you.
167.
167.
The request.
That's how totally.
So this is the thing though, that we had originally funded through ARPA, right? But then it was
Yes.
unclear what was there.
So
and
there
we
was
didn't-
$15,000 allotted in ARPA.
Yeah,
And then we were having difficulties finding a good vendor to do this. Finally, we got this one company. So the money was kind of tracked at ARPA. So,
well,
you know, the old saying, you don't use it, you lose it, right? So,
but now you know exactly what you want.
yes.
Will this be qualify under ARPA, you think, like the vendor and all that? Maybe this is when we can look at it, funding appropriating again, you know?
I don't
Is
know.
this the one, is this the annual amount of 6,000?
So, yes, it would go up annually.
This is an annual operating.
Oh, this is an almost house
So-
subscription, basically.
Yes, it would
so,
go, it
okay.
would increase the maintenance on the software.
Oh, is it 5? Sorry.
Yeah, 5.
Can you buy a 2-year contract or a
I'm
3-year
sorry.
contract?
Oh, it's not paid.
And get a
We
discount?
may be able to, but I was told we couldn't do that.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm saying if we were
Yeah.
to do ARPA, we could buy like a 3-year discounted 3-year contract or something. Thought, you know, so it's not built into the budget. I'll flag that. We can talk about that later.
But I could find out.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe if it's.
Yeah, what do you want to do next?
Building, 131. Any on there, Jean?
You there, Ben? Yeah,
Vinny, you're muted.
Unmuted now.
there you go.
There he is.
Welcome, Vinny.
How's it going?
Welcome.
You look relaxed.
I'm pretty much chilling, yeah.
Do you want to talk about the request or do you want to just?
Yeah, so,
Okay.
Vinny actually requested additional
It's not
requests
in your book.
to take it into the book, you know, for another body to help with inspections. So I forget, we need to talk about these part-time.
A part-time position. I mean, we had conversations with Vinny about this in early December, you know, there was reasons that it couldn't get submitted by the end of this year. You know, with a little uncertainty, but I think, you know, I know he wanted to still submit the request to the boards. And I think we were talking, he was requesting a part-time position. What was the dollar amount for
So
that,
if
Vinny?
it was 20 hours a week, it'd be about 42,000, and if it was 29 hours, it'd be somewhere around 61,000.
Yeah, So maybe what we'll do is send an email around to everybody just with the description and the dollar amount about that. That's not in your books. You know, I think Vinny talked a lot about productivity. We're, you know, the number of permits that go through our office. So I don't know if you want to talk why you think more assistance is needed and, you know.
Well, I mean, last year we processed just short of 4,000 permits. You know, it's only Sarah and myself. We do a ton of inspections. We're extremely busy. You know, 29 hours would be better, but I could get away with 20. Presently, Tim Lunn is taking the class up in Hartford, and without a doubt he'll pass. There's not a question about that. But in the same token, if I'm taking Tim and using him part-time, who's gonna, you know, it can't come out of the fire marshal's budget, it's gotta come out of the building budget. And we don't, you know, right now I only have $2,000 a year budgeted as an overtime line for outside help or outside inspections. You know, I mean, the pace that we're on is, you know, pretty extensive. I mean, I showed, you know, I've showed a quick spreadsheet I put together. Where I was averaging almost 14 inspections a day all of last year. Nobody does that many. So the help would be, you know, no, my health is not going to be a factor, but nobody can keep that pace up. Income wise, you know, we've been 600 plus. We'll be 600 plus this year. We're like 660 last year, like 860 the year before. So we have more than enough income to be able to provide this position. I'm trying to ease the burden part of it.
And so the other thing is too, there's no redundancy in this department. Like when he ended up getting sick, we had to kind of scramble to get things covered, and it was kind of a monumental task. It wasn't easy to get things done.
Yeah, we never had redundancy, but I never really had a heart attack before either, so.
Yeah.
But now I got a transplant. I got a new ticker, and I'm 2 steps ahead of the curve, the doctors say. So way ahead of schedule.
You got a new engine.
Well, I think though that, you know, we found over the last 2 to 3 years, we've had a couple of incidences where we've been
Yes.
not
Happened with
have
our zoning-
redundancies, and it's
happened with
also a
zoning
problem,
enforcement.
we have regulatory obligations, when you have, the world can't stop because an employee has a health issue.
What do other towns do?
So, you know, some towns, they have redundancy built in, we try to, you know, use resources from other towns, and that's what we've been doing, we have somebody part-time, right, that's been coming in and handling inspections. But so we've been just trying to make sure that there's, you know, cross-training or redundancy built into the system. And I will say the volume, you know, that goes through the building department here is quite significant. Madison is a busy place, and people do a lot of home improvements, especially the last, you know, 3 or 4 years with the real estate market being really good. So.
And unfortunately, we didn't get the cold winter, so there's no frost, so people are still building.
Yeah, so extensive.
So we didn't get a break.
So,
Stacy, what are the revenues coming in? from
Yeah.
this?
as you were saying, it's like 600,000
She
plus.
just got out. Yeah.
But so just so you all know, so Tim is my deputy fire marshal. So if we use him to help Vinny out cover, and we're gonna have to increase the hours of my inspectors, because we still have, you know, the statutory requirements to get all these existing places inspected as well. You know, we did over, it was 380 inspections just with gas inspections and, open burning and stuff like that. So previous year, not this last fiscal year, I think right now we're about 250 so far, and that doesn't include our, you know, with the other software, it's very difficult to get out. I can't get a summary of proper inspections that we do because it lists everything by violation. So if one property has 5 violations on it, it says we inspected it 5 times. And it's just, software is just horrible. And we probably should never went with it, but they sold us the bill of goods.
The fire marshal's office did almost 528 inspections last year for my department alone. And for gas.
So, so it is busy, you know, the volume is there. And we are maintaining with the existing, you know, I know a couple years ago I asked for an increase for inspectors, but we are maintaining. You know, Tim's been actually doing a good job coordinating them and getting them out and put up with the requirements. We're not quite caught up, but we're not as bad as we were. You know, we have all the high target places done, which is, you know, all the places where people sleep, you know, stuff like that. Those are all up to date. There is quite a few more, you know, apartment buildings coming up. Now we got 7 more units though, that Cottage Road, we're gonna have to inspect annually, as well. So as this low income housing keeps coming in, it's just more work for us. But so that's kind of where we're at.
So will we get a recommendation on what the number is?
I'll be submitting a recommendation on all this, taking into account Vinnie's
So when we
request
do
and
our,
Sam.
when we do our additionals, we'll
Yeah,
have, and it's good to asterisk it with the revenue offset.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, so Matt, you had asked, in fiscal year 22, this was COVID, we budgeted 450, we got in 882, so that year was phenomenal. In fiscal year 23, we bumped the budget up to 500, we got in 593. And to date, it's still at 500 for fiscal year 24. And we already got in 380,000.
That's not guaranteed.
Serious revenue.
It's pretty consistent over the years, it really is.
impressive.
I mean,
Always over. what
I
we
sit there and I
budgeted.
always say, this has got, the bubble's gotta stop, right? The real estate, you know, invest, but it's been, people are, you know,
It's not-
constantly upgrading in this town.
It's very consistent.
It's very consistent.
Cheaper to improve your home than it is to sell your home.
Right? Well, there's nothing on the I just met with I talked to a realtor today at lunch and she said there's like no inventory right now. So everybody's just saying, okay, well, yeah.
Yeah, I know, I know Tim Mack has got applications in to build 7 new houses. So, you know, the inventory's going up.
Yeah, I mean, we have a number of, you know, projects that will be coming down the pipeline too, that will be adding to.
Yeah, some big commercial projects coming up down Route 1.
Yeah. So I think we'll come up with a recommendation on how to address all this. I'll send out an email just so you know what his request had been and the dollar amount. So kind of, it was a timing issue, obviously, with what was going on with him personally, and so it just didn't get it into the packet, so. But we will, we'll be coming back with a recommendation.
Okay, good. Health, page 145,
Good to see you, Ben.
Trent.
Nice seeing you guys.
Thank you.
Good evening.
146 is Trent's budget, and then he does have an additional budget request.
Ready?
Good evening, guys. Just a quick disclaimer. If we get yelling and crying, it's because I'm beside my co-pilot, the baby here. So, just bear with me. If it gets loud, I'll just mute. Sammy, you okay if I take it away? Yeah, so everything in the operational budget pretty much is a status quo, with the exception of our household hazardous waste account. Peggy signed the resolution for this program that the town has been in for more than 20 years. And really the increase is it's a contractual increase due to the inflation and cost of recycling has gone up. And I know some of you as board members, I know there's over 500 residents that actually partake in this event that we would do one day in October. We'll have a satellite collection for household hazardous waste, paints, oils, antifreeze, whatever the case may be. And then there's also another component to that program, which is in New Haven with 90 Sergeant Drive. And that's where we get to see the amount of users that the town has. So the town signed into this program, and it allowed for residents of Madison to go to New Haven throughout the year and dispose of their household hazardous waste. Now, we since 20, well, for sorry, we've since allowed for every other week, I mean every other year, we would hold a household hazardous waste event. It used to be at Hammonasset. Now it's at the town garage. And last year, if you recall, we didn't extend the budget for this, and I think Peggy's office got a lot of calls about it. So this is just the dollar amount that's going to suffice to cover the one satellite day and then routine usage from our households in Madison.
The 15,000 in the additional budget that is referring to on page 167.
Yeah, so just so you know, it doesn't matter where person goes to recycle, they take the person's address, they can charge back to the town. So even if Guilford had a satellite day, if Madison people went over there, Madison would get charged for it. Same thing with Guilford. When Guilford people come to Madison satellite day.
So we're just giving Guilford addresses.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure they ask for a license or something.
I think when we talked about this in the board, we were all pretty philosophically aligned with making sure this happened. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, the cost is the cost. I think the town, needs to walk the walk on these types of things.
And if you recall, we've been asking for special appropriations the last couple of years to cover the extra day, and that's why we didn't do it last year. So there's no request this year.
Right. Yeah, it's also unpredictable because you don't know how many people are going to show up, right? So it's every year's a little bit of a. I will say we're looking at other ways. This might be something we could pull out through a different funding mechanism. That'll be part of the recommendation. We'll figure it out. But I do think, to Bruce's point, we need to figure out. We got to offer it. We got to pay for it. So
do we have to use regional water authority? Could we use a private company? Is there?
I don't know. It might be more. We use private.
It might be, but it might be worth looking into.
We could. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I have to look into that. But I know all the towns. Everybody goes to South Central.
Probably
So
it's expensive.
Is this 15,000 just for that satellite?
Just the one
day?
day.
One day.
So it doesn't have anything to do with the cost that we pay for going into New Haven and dropping it off? Yes, already.
That 22,000 seems to be the big cost.
amazing how expensive it is though. I mean, I was kind of stunned that, and people use it. We got, when we didn't have one this year.
Yes, there was a lot of.
A lot of calls. Just why aren't we offering this? We should be encouraging people to dispose of these things properly. So,
Well, yes, you can go to New Haven and do it.
yeah.
From May through October.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a, this people gather up and then wait for it, and come in and,
Killingworth Harbor, you can bring 5 cans of paint.
Really? That's good.
I've done it. Oh, wow.
You just leave it in the parking lot in the middle of the night.
Dairy Hill, I heard.
I just remember there's cameras everywhere.
There are cameras everywhere.
Okay, so any other questions for Trent? No? Okay. Great, thank you.
Thanks, Trent.
Land use is next, page 127. That's Aaron.
Trent was trying to bribe us with a baby.
He was.
That was a
Right.
sucker, but
That was
it's
a
a
brilliant
sucker.
move.
It worked. Yeah. it did
Highly
work.
recommend. I'm bringing a puppy next year.
Trying to distract you.
That's okay.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Thank you. Okay, so I have some minor changes to our budget. Some of it was restructuring as under the land use department, I had a few commissions that had their own separate budgets, specifically Historic District Commission, where they covered legal notice fees and any of their supplies and clerking, minute taking expenses. I also had the Conservation Commission that had an individual budget that predominantly was for summer internships and other necessary supplies. The Economic Development Commission also had their own separate account that was used for various expenses. That was once EDC merged away from or separated from land use, that was under Sherry's budget previously. We looked, I had some in discussions with Peggy and some other land use related boards had requested their own budgets as well, mostly just support fees in case there was educational outreach. Specifically, the Bike Ped Committee had initiated this request. So we, in conversation with Peggy and Stacy, looked at this to dissolve some of those individual commission budgets and just create one shared commissioner resource line item within the land use budget, where they would then come directly to me requesting, and they'll split the money as needed. And so that's one major change that you'll see, and that line item is 15,000, which is actually a reduction from the total amount of the separated commission.
What was the total, what was the separated accounts again, 20?
22.
Yeah, okay, so that's 7, just to explain, we had all these little mini accounts for different boards and commissions, and it was just kind of odd. And sometimes they'd use the money and sometimes they wouldn't, and we said, let's just create a pool. If they won't need funding, we'll support it, but they gotta go direct, come to the pool, so that we're kind of allocating every year, rather than having these little pots all over the place, so. And then we reduced the pot, just looking at experience in the last couple of years, down to 15,000.
What have they been spending? What, do you have a sense of the total? 22 was the budget, but
Yeah, we have to go through it. Part of that was the EDC.
if you don't have it.
Yeah, and it was also the EDC.
It was the EDC
Yeah,
too.
and we had added money to EDC because when we had a full-time position, there was a lot of marketing initiatives and stuff. And so we said, okay, I guess we're not gonna have a person do it, so we reduced it.
So is it fair to say that this $340,000 budget had a $155 increase? Okay, we can move on.
That was easy. I didn't even bring any kids or my puppy. I did have, unless you have questions, there were a couple of increases, really namely due to legal notice expenses, as well as increases that were statutorily driven. All our staff required certifications. All those fees are going up for continuing ed as well. And now it's mandated that land use commissioners have training, ongoing training. And so I did allocate for some, some of those are free opportunities to have training for the commissioners, but others we do, again, need to bring in our land use council or some other professionals throughout the state, and that would help. As we know, zoning and is a hot topic, and it is very advantageous to have our commissioners understand what their role is. So I'm in support of that. And then lastly, we're hoping to increase our permit fees. For every building permit, we have associated zoning approvals, as well as our individual commissioner application processes, and those fees have not been updated in quite some time. We're not consistent with neighboring municipalities. It is through ordinance, so it will be coming back before the board, but that is something that I'm working on that will help bring in some revenue as well.
Do you know, what is the revenue for land use fees? Do you have a general ballpark? We'll put you on a spot, but.
Oh.
Because our fees are really low, I think.
Our fees are low, and the state takes $58 from every application.
So we did 15,000.
Okay.
For land use.
It's not like the building.
No. For the tax collector.
Yeah, that's right, or the.
It looks like last year came in at almost 17.6.
Yeah, but our actual fees are pretty low. I know we talked about, so Aaron's gonna make some recommendations, it'll come to our board if we wanna look at raising fees.
Any other questions?
Great, thank you.
Reduction because of no kid.
I have all of them. It's a miracle you can't hear them.
Public Works.
Thank you.
Yeah. What was the page, sorry?
90. Yeah.
Yeah. So in Public Works, I have two budget requests. The first one is equipment repairs. That budget has been 124,000 for several years. We have not increased it. Parts and labor have increased, you all know, over the last several years, decreased significantly. 2022, the actual expenditure was 148,000. And in 2023, it was 131,000. So my request is to increase that from 124 to 132,000 to cover the additional expenses associated with rising costs. And that's it for equipment repairs. Questions on that, or?
I should know the answer to this. The 700,000 for roads. How is that different than the CIP money?
That is the
the
CIP. That's the major roads account, which is kept.
So it shows up in the operating budget even though it's a CIP line?
Yes, that's
Like I said, I
part of
should
the
know
budget
that,
that we move into.
You're doing a survey.
Right.
Will that be completed in this fiscal year?
Yes.
That we're talking about?
Yes, they're gonna begin that in the spring.
This is like March, April. So starting in March, April.
It's through SCROG. We're going to be getting a grant for this. And they have a deadline in the grant requirements for when the study needs to commence, and it's early spring. And it's not something that is really that time consuming process. So I don't have an exact date, but probably by the time that we're going to be ready to pave, I hope to have that study in hand, which will be, earlier than like May.
And so that was my question. Will that data be actionable in this budget?
It may be that we make some adjustments, but we want to get on their schedule very early in spring so that we don't miss our opportunity. The problem is we're competing with all the other towns in the state to get on these state bid contracts. Which are very.
I don't envision it, because think about it, we finish our board of selectmen in March. We're not gonna have the result from this study until probably late April, May at the earliest, right? If we're lucky.
Right.
So at best, you're just gonna be juggling the street, the miles, or maybe allocating the miles paved to different streets than you originally expected.
Yeah, we might be making some adjustments to it. But I think as far as really having a plan, a revamped plan that's gonna get us to a certain goal, probably looking at the following year.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I was trying to figure out that she
She did, and
disappeared.
then she took it down.
Did she disappear? Where's her
Maybe she hit the
box?
wrong.
Oh, she hasn't been elevated to actual panel.
Yes, she just.
Forging.
Oh, okay. Um. Well, so it would maybe move through he's going through
So,
different
yeah,
budget
and I
requests,
just-
but
I have-
if there's anything in the main budget that you wanna ask, that's part of the main budget we're talking about.
Yeah, and I was just
Yeah.
trying to suss
Yeah.
out, do we need to be thinking about, an allocation,
Right.
to bump it up in anticipation of the plan?
Yeah.
But it sounds like maybe next year.
So the second budget request that I have is the highway overtime account. And this account likewise, we have the actual expenditure has been more than the budgeted amount, which is 22,003. In 2022, the expenditure was 39,000, and in 2023, it was 38,000 and change, I'm rounding. So I'm requesting to increase that budget to 40,000. Just to cover anticipated expenses.
I mean, we are obviously having more frequent storms, more events, we're calling in, public works to be prepared, so a lot of times we have people on standby now because of the flooding and, we're having more trees down, we're just having more and more of these types of emergencies. And then on top of that, I know the, police department for special events has been requesting, dump trucks and things like that as, public safety measures.
Barriers, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that, I know we talked about, do we pass that on to if it's an event, or do we not?
Some of those events, I think we can charge for.
Yeah, the PD
Like,
charges,
for example,
right?
the fireworks, we don't charge for.
Right.
that. But there's these private, I guess it's the triathlon. That.
Right. But then you have the 4th of July parade, right? So,
Right.
and that's
Memorial
double
Day.
time or whatever for people to do. It's important because this is the world we're in now, unfortunately, that you have to have these types of barriers, put up.
So on any of those events around the 4th of July, I don't think church.
Yeah, right.
The triathlon stuff, like, the PD is sending a bill and we should back on it with the cost for public works.
Yes.
That was going to be my question as well, regarding private organizations hosting events. Are we passing on any sort of fee to them for those special accommodations that we need to make with roadways and that sort of thing?
So we haven't been, but we're going to implement.
Okay.
We do for police, but we have not been doing
not for
that.
public
Yeah,
works.
and I think this is probably like the 3rd or 4th year now that we've
Yeah.
been doing this, so.
And it's a relatively small percentage of this total budget is
Yeah.
these, a couple of these events.
Right.
But we should be reimbursed for that.
Like the summer concert series, I see the guys there sometimes. Is that another, would that be considered an event? Which is.
Yes, all of those, we've responded in the last several years to what, the emergency services are looking for. Kind of beefed up the presence from Public Works and for traffic control and so forth. So that, we're experiencing an increase from that, and I think, could be these flooding events where we're coming in and we're proactive and coming in early to make sure that, we're prepared for what floods down along the shorelines and so forth.
So we're bringing in the crews early to make sure they can get here. If you wait, if you're reactive and, if trees are down all over the place, they might take them an hour or an hour and a half by the time they get around, roots and stuff like that. So that's one of the reasons why we're actually calling it.
Just so you know, this year we're already short $4,000.
That, I don't have any other requests, so the, Public Works budget is, status quo other than those two.
Okay, maybe we take a break since we're done with town operations.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has any questions on the gas and oil,
Oh,
just because there is a big
yeah,
increase.
yeah.
I know John spent a lot of time on analyzing.
Right, so we locked into a rate, for next fiscal year, which is actually, prices are down for fuel. But when I went through and estimated what I think we're gonna need, and it's, I think it represents a pretty good increase from the previous year.
What's the reason why we're using so
I
much
think it
more?
was, I don't know if it was underestimated or,
We're only locking in about 80%, because if we lock in too much, then we have to pay a store. If we don't use it.
right.
But you don't know,
Well,
I'm just surprised it went up 90,000 last year. I can understand that because of the increases we had last year. But the price is coming down this year. I was hoping to see it coming down instead of going up 50,000.
Right.
And from what I hear you saying, that's additional usage.
It's not additional usage really, if you look at the quantities, I think it was underestimated the prior year. That's what happened.
These are
Last
futures,
year.
right?
Last year, we
Buying
took an
futures?
average of 5 years.
You mean in terms of the lock-in?
But the part, I guess the part I don't understand is the
We just
actuals are
started.
118.
We took it from, what's that?
The actuals are 118 last year, right?
Yeah, but so when we built the 202 though for this year,
Yeah.
we took an average of the usage over the last 5 years and then took that. And we moved it from all the different departments. Remember, we moved it.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
It was-
This used to
from
be
the
scattered,
others had it.
and then we, you know.
You had your,
And
yeah, we pulled it all together, so we did our best last year.
And this is only the second year that we're locking in. We didn't lock in and we got kind of hurt. Remember, we had to do an appropriation for fuel, so now we're like trying to do like the school buses, you know, just lock it in so we can budget for it. So,
Yeah, so
That
first.
that accounts for part of that
Yeah.
increase.
Yeah.
You're right, because we did lock in and
Yeah.
prices went
yeah.
skyrocketed.
Well, we were also, the first time we did it was when all the stuff was going on with Ukraine and we were worried about getting, you know, we're trying to work. So anyways, it is what it is, but this is for the new, you just got this recently though, this contract.
Yes, we locked in.
Yeah, so, yeah,
But the gallons are more accurate.
yeah,
The usage
Yeah.
is more accurate.
we're gonna get a better handle on that, so.
Yeah.
So this will be the third budget year where we have the consolidated account and a contract. This next
The
year.
second year.
Or second year, excuse me, the second.
Yeah, I think that's why it went up so much last year, because we pulled everything together.
Yeah,
Increased
and it
the
was
count.
later, and when we were because we had never done contracts before, so.
Questions on?
If you want any other questions, then maybe we do a quick break, we've got the food here. And then we can finish up the last few. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay, 5-minute break to get food. Yeah, bring it back and then we'll continue on. Yeah.
Yeah, and Al too, look at Al. It's the uniform. We decided this was the uniform.
I remember when we ordered 2 pizzas, I was like, Jesus. Hey, how are you?
Having a good day.
You know, it's like.
Yeah.
Why was it because of CIP? We never discussed it this year.
Hey, I can do this. I don't think we've met. Yes, I've met you before.
We did.
Wow, yeah. I think Madison Chambers thing or a couple different things. I've seen you before. I have. I'm sure we've been on a.
Congratulations. Doing the ball section up here.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
You know what, I hate these tables. I always hated these
Because of the way that they,
That's it.
like this.
So I'm
Yes,
sitting at
yeah,
the
right,
kitchen
right.
table.
Yes, yeah, no, I get it, yes.
Oh, I think.
You know what it is too? I think I.
Or when should I come back?
I know.
I didn't answer the door. Because you're right next to John. Yeah, that was. And I had gone, I don't know, for something or, yeah, I
As soon
remember.
as I go, why did you come and stop? The other one started. And then pick up the other one, that one
Asian big show?
You know what?
Yeah, exactly.
Two shifts.
Exactly.
I have.
Oh, it was just see.
Yes, yeah.
Was it good? Oh, good.
What was the last one? But now I feel like. Fair. You're talking about the. Okay. I remember. Yeah. I had it. All right. You know, like the Ian. Yeah, I don't know. That's not usually the case.
Yeah.
I actually know who you are.
So that's either good or bad.
It's very good.
Yes, yeah. So she's.
I try not to. I'm trying not
Maybe so it's legally necessary.
It's just one team, so no like this. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
For what?
Oh, you know. She's awesome. She should be your one.
I think that's you're one of those
I
moms.
know, I'm not.
That's a great story. It's great. Endless energy too. Great show.
Thanks for taking care of this.
I was just saying, Jack's back at school. He left early. He's one of the managers for the men's business. That's how it's even like that.
Wow, that's gotta be.
Yeah, like having a ton of fun. They're number one in the state. He loves it. We saw him on TV last night. He's traveled twice so far. Oh yeah, they.
I'm gonna watch the games and see.
Oh yeah, you'll see it behind the bench. Right, last night it was mom and after. When it was tied up. And Sunday. I got two short ones, Jack and Noah. Sure.
Right,
Yeah.
just like
Short section. It's gonna be tall and like that. And he's it's very funny. It's a spectator presenting fencing, wrestling.
Oh, I see.
Well, such a guy, that I don't say.
Yeah, like I say, spectator. And now, right, under, or, yeah, you're there all day and they 12 seconds.
So, yeah, so.
Exactly, right. Just a lot.
I felt so bad.
But that means we said.
Yeah, no, I live at the house. It's been awesome. There's always a different sport on TV, but that's right. Yeah, I think they just see you, good luck with maternity too. You have your new courts this year. They are, it's like, no, I just salad. And then I heard, oh, I might have one. Yes.
Overview, and if there's
Really?
But as I said, the finance director has. And then we would basically just do everything, either, whatever you want. Write it up, we never had this like that, where you went through it. How are you?
So what did they retreat?
Yeah, we're just at the interim, we're at halfway through, so I think tomorrow.
How about the second?
Where's this from? 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my gosh, remind me to share the itinerary. Oh my God. We're going with another.
You're getting on
Do we have a private sunset dinner
Old items.
on the top of the,
Michael was beyond.
ruins of some. But it's literally a cliff to ruins, and they set up a table and the sky is offloading in the.
He is.
Oh my God.
You're right here. Right where you put him, and I'm like, they gotta look kind of cool like that. Right, they do. And I love,
That's been on my list.
Stickers on. They're like that. You don't see that anymore.
No, you don't, not at all. It's actually really neat.
Yeah, I have one of those suitcases. I know, it's like David's dad's. They come around.
Do you judge the?
We have one of those with some stickers on it.
That's
But
cool.
it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is.
Actually, it's under the bed or something. but-
Mykonos, Paros, and Sandri. And then.
Like they don't have somebody.
So I thought maybe we could reconvene here, because just, I know we got people on phone, and I know everybody wants to go home. So if everybody wants to.
Let's get going.
So you're up next. Oh, me? I don't even look at my budget, so.
I think it's really just a position shifting.
Yeah.
Page 61.
There are no additional budget requests. And, yeah, you can explain that, because that was that Lauren's position that got reallocated.
That got moved to finance. Remember I promised you
Yeah.
to see the
Yep,
reduction?
yep.
There it is.
And that's kind of it.
That's it. Art, page 64, technology.
I will say that my budget ends up being where everybody is
Jean's
running
people
low,
are-
come to me.
It
'Cause I
takes
know.
a minute sometimes.
So,
Yeah.
What's, the art, okay, yep. Oh, yes, it's art, art.
Uh, Jeannie, I have Steve Fust is also available if it's possible to bring him up also. Just wanted to introduce myself to a few. I don't think I know everybody on the boards. I haven't met everybody at least. My name's Art Sickle, although I know most of you, there are a couple of folks that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting in person. I've been the IT director for the town and the school system for the last 23 years. And Steve Fust is our assistant manager, and he's been with us for, I think it's 31 years. So there's a fair amount of experience here. And we are a shared department. And as you can see from our staffing profiles, Rita Boland is our webmaster application support specialist, and she is also a shared employee. So there's 1.5 employees for the town. That's half of me, Steve, and Rita. And that is basically the staffing profile for the town. I wanted to just point out a couple of things in our budget. The technology equipment line of there is actually CIP money. So it does get discussed in that way. It is primarily obsolescence replacement at the moment. We don't have any other projects looped in here right now, but there's a obsolescence replacement for the town equipment that covers, laptops, desktops, wherever we need data closet type equipment, switches and servers and all that good stuff that makes the network run and hopefully keeps us secure. And we support, basically all of the town and school equipment and networking, also the operating system hardware and software, and we run the district applications and the town applications, and many of those are shared. So there's some real economy of scale that the town gets to take advantage of, and sometimes the school gets the benefit. But in any event, the only thing that is probably important to point out in this request this year is, as you can see, our professional and technical services line, that increased by a large percentage. It's not a huge amount of money because it's not a huge amount of money to begin with, but that's really the result of just monies that are actually operating expenses that are the result of some of the small application implementations that we do every year through that CIP funds. So, that was planned and worked with Peggy and Stacy to move that into an operating line that made sense and reflects more accurately that it's an operating line. I don't know if we have any questions for me on the budget. It's I think it's fairly straightforward this year. The numbers in professional technical service that did go up are related to, among other things, it's related to our conversion from on-premise Exchange server for email to our Gmail and Google implementation, which was last year and last fiscal year anyway. And other than that, we've also had a couple of other small applications that have migrated into annual, but this is a continuation. Software licenses, support for annual maintenance on different software products, and those are increases in the costs as well from one year to the next. Is there anything that I can answer for the group, or did I leave anything out you're interested in?
Not sure if you want to talk about the clear coat that we're going to be implement.
I'm sorry, what was it? I do have an additional budget request I wanted to mention, but I couldn't hear what you said, Stace.
I was just wondering if we wanted to bring up the ClearGov that we're gonna implement now.
Yeah, the budgeting application that basically takes our budget data and comes up with a much more digestible kind of budget report that we can allow the public to have better access to our financial data. So that will be rolling out for May. Yeah, for May. So the final budget that will be going to the public, right, hopefully it will have the new look. Like you might have seen other towns use this. It's becoming, a lot of towns in Connecticut are adopting it, but it's just a much more user-friendly way to look at the data and parse it versus looking at kind of our munis reports. So I think it'll be a good step up for public consumption to look at the budget.
Where does that show up?
That's in,
To your line, right, Art?
it's in the professional technical services for next year.
And I will say that, like, you know, everything we're moving towards is cloud-based. It's more expensive. And with Google, obviously, that was more expensive. So we're also using a lot more applications. We have apps that, you know, the town app, all these things kind of do add up.
Right.
One of the things we're probably going to do is look at some of the, you know, different communication systems that we've been using and try to consolidate. You know, we're going to kind of do a review of some of those applications this year just to see what's working, what's not, you know, because we've been trying different things. But, you know, this is an area that I think we heard from the public, at least through the strategic planning process, the communication and how things are, you know, presented to the public and public outreach are important. So I think it's important to keep investing in some of the technology.
And also in the spirit of improving communications all the time, you know, our website is very has grown into quite a large system, and we've got you know, all the social media accounts and everything. And we do have an additional budget request in for $30,000 for part-time help, a part-time position. I think we budgeted 20 hours at that point. And the intention of that is to be able to offload some of this work that our webmaster and application support specialist is currently handling right now. Again, remember, she just like Stephen and myself are 0.5 employees shared with the Board of Ed. So the workload is really fairly significant. And you know, in any event, to take on more and make some capacity available for the more complex tasks that need to be done, projects that we're working on. We do need to get some help in there, some additional hands. So that's what our budget request is for, and I think it's identified in the book pretty clearly.
I mean, just to remind, like, you know, every board and commission requires, you know, documents to get posted, meeting notices. I mean, it is a huge undertaking now. And then on top of that, we're laying around hybrid meetings. And we have a much higher expectation from the public for communications.
Right.
So, you know, this was brainstorming a little bit. How do we get some more resources to support the demands that the public is having for information, and in a timely way too. I think that was where Art had suggested this kind of part-time person to assist the webmaster, because now everything's on multiple platforms, which is it's hard. I was just talking about this at lunch when I went to the chamber lunch. You know, all these different channels now, marketing channels, and people expect you to be on. We're not on Instagram. Why isn't the town on Instagram? Well, that's a whole nother effort, you know, that requires a staff member to put it in Instagram form and then put it out to the public. So anyway, so it's a challenge. And so the thought was to have an additional person that can assist. And keep in mind, we're 24/7. We have storms over the weekends. And if I want to do a storm message or not do a storm message, we just tell people that road closures or something. We need to figure out a better way to get that done quickly, you know, outside of normal business hours. Right now we have a part-time, half a person basically in our budget to do this for the 7-day-a-week, 24/7 job. So it's kind of becoming unsustainable. And we just gotta, I think we have to think about streamlining, but we also have to figure out more resources to handle it.
But is this person supporting the getting the videos posted and all of that? Or are they creating social media posts? Are we?
Right now, they're doing both.
Pardon?
Right now, they're doing both. They're creating all the icons and everything for the posts.
But we don't ask Art to create and write new social media posts, do we?
No,
Rita's doing it.
Rita's doing it.
That's Rita, Bruce. It's our department, but it's Rita.
But she's not content, but she ends up having to create a graphic, and then she has to keep the content, and then she has to put it on the website and link it to the website. And so the only content creator really is myself or a department, depending on what they're trying to put out there. And we don't really have a formal communications content person. So it's really staff that handles the content somehow. And then Rita's kind of putting it in graphic form and linking it and using all these different channels to get it out. So.
And also, also managing all of the, the ADA compliance requirements for all of these, she works with departments for content. She also she is very capable and has done a phenomenal job growing the site. And I think representing a super professional site that, we're very proud of. And I think that we need to probably get the routine tasks of some of these postings just off of her so she can do more of the complex.
I think what I was asking is, we're not calling on you to create content. We're calling on you to translate somebody else's content into a postable format.
Primarily, we do rely on receiving the content from other departments. However, there's often a lot of input to contribute as well to the final product that gets posted.
And so this new position would be doing that as well.
This new position, in my vision, would be doing some of the existing posting without much content creation, and I'm assuming that we would take on a larger role in the content creation part for my.
Because there's also the element of, we have a public information session that's been scheduled. We vote on setting it or whatever. That now has to go through a process of notifying the public, scheduling it, content, and we really don't have anybody that manages that whole process. So sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. There's no one who's owning that and saying, right now it's like, I want to make sure it goes out on social media. I want to make sure it goes out on, we need to have more of a streamline. This is what happens every time we have a public hearing, and then this is what gets put out for the public hearing. And this is the documents that are there. And then it has to get put on the website, so it's just a lot now, that's just.
So if the Board of Finance wants to do TikTok dances, we have to create a content.
We already did one.
We did.
Oh, yeah.
You go first.
Can I see that real quick? Can we put that up on the screen? Real quick?
No, it's happening.
It's happening.
Yeah, the town doesn't have a TikTok account.
It will.
Seriously, poor Rita's also out there taking pictures.
Yeah, no,
She's like our chief photographer
yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the photography, and then, like I said, there's also
One-stop
this
shop.
element of people are expecting, as you see, 7 days a week. Our beaches are so busy on the weekends, and they want to know: did Hammonasset close? Did are there spots available at surf clubs? It's just it's a huge, and we have really no one.
It's the new town square, like it or not.
Yeah.
And that's how people expect to get their information.
Yeah, and the problem is we don't have people who are responsible for doing this 7 days a week. So anyway, so this was one way to move it forward perhaps and try to address the issue.
Right.
We tried to keep it at a low budget rate. So.
Well, as it is, it's only 1.5 FTEs for the entire tech department from the town budget, and the benefit of having a larger group of tech support folks and network folks, when we combine that with full-time people, individuals that are funded by the Board of Ed side as well, there's a lot of common network functionality that, it's a great benefit to the town. It's the same network essentially. So, many of the things that we're doing on a regular basis impact everyone, all of the districts, and including some of the police department and other, certainly all of the other town departments. So I think it's been a very efficient method. Those economies of scale and the common platforms that we have. It's been quite good to have the shared department in that case. The total department has more folks in the school system than we do on the town side. Just the sheer numbers of pieces of equipment there alone. There's an awful lot of equipment everywhere, and the town's been doing. I think we've been doing a pretty good job keeping the town current. So it's just been a great efficiency, I think, having the shared department. And but the downside is, in this case, we don't have overlap. In Rita's not only doing the town website and social media, but she's also doing the school district's website and their social media and messaging and all of that, in addition to one other person that's not involved in the tech department at all. But I think that it would be a great benefit to get at least the part-time help.
Any other questions for Art? Okay, great. Thank
Thanks,
you,
Art.
Art. Yeah,
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Steve.
Good. Next is town clerk and the registrar, town clerk.
Page 75 and 78.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So for those of you that don't know, I'm Nancy Martucci, the town clerk. I have Ann Devine with me here, our registrar, one of our registrar voters. And probably easier to start with the town clerk side, and then we'll information. So I have been in the town clerk's office for 17 years total, 12 years as town clerk. Well, just to give you a little background, for those of you that don't know, we wear a lot of different hats in our office. Just a quick rundown. We're the keeper of the town seal. We handle all the recordings and all the real estate transactions. We keep all the recorded documents in the vault, the land records that are recorded, as well as other documents, board and commission minutes, agendas. We have all the other town documents there that we maintain and keep for the history of the town. We handle the vital records, birth, marriage, death records. We do all the certified copies of those. We issue marriage licenses, dog licenses. We're notary publics. We keep all the veterans' discharges. We do trade names, liquor permits. We do the postings now, the agendas and the minutes to the website, town website. And we administer oaths. We handle the town meetings. And we do all the absentee ballots for any of the elections. And we actually are the ones that certify the election afterwards, along working with the registrars of voters. The town clerk operating budget, I have left the same. That part of it, I have not asked for anything else. The two things that my office is asking for, there's going to be a little overlap with part of it with the register of voters, but just on the town clerk side is staff basically for overtime during election this year, dog licensing time, and town meetings. For the overtime of that, I was asking for $6,500. Again, that's actually for my existing staff when things get busy, especially this year with the presidential election. The other thing that I asked for in addition was, because the town charter changed the ordinances for all the departments, there's going to be a large amount of ordinance information going in. And I usually would have or be able to cover that through my legal budget. But this year, because of that, I'm asking for an additional amount for the ordinances. And I think we said
You're 5,000, yeah. So those are the two things really for my office. The other part of it overlaps with the registrars, just for voting purposes. Does anybody have any questions just about the town clerk side of things?
Your office for early voting is very specific. Is that the 6,500 is included in that too for early voting? Does that really impact you at all?
No, early voting is going to be completely
Yeah.
separate
All
with the
of
registrars.
Okay.
It's free.
Okay, so then am I.
Yep. So if we're good, maybe we talk about the registrars, because obviously that's a big discussion.
Right, and a few things that I have, like I said, we overlap. The first thing is just the additional cost for ballots this year.
So just real, if people, it's page 169, so we're in the additional budget requests, and we're talking about the registers of voters, additional budget requests.
You get a full page.
It's a big deal.
So the ballots, we really overlap between my office and the registrar of the voters office. So for the increase in that, mainly because of early voting and in a presidential election, the numbers get so high, we figured about 5,500 for that. The next item is what really is still my office, is asking for the help of 2 additional people during the presidential election. And I'm figuring about $22 an hour, 7 hours a day, figuring about 25 days. During 2020, certainly we had COVID, so it was a little bit different. But I started off with using many departmental staff, and I will still be doing that most likely, to help putting together absentee ballot packets and getting everything ready. And we really sort of have an assembly line of things so that as we start doing absentee ballots, we can just start grabbing. So the supplies come in, it's all different boxes, and everything kind of has to come together because there's like 5 different things that go together as a packet for an absentee ballot. So last time I used various departments as they had a little downtime. They would help us all put these things together. I would probably do that again this year. In 2020, because of the increase of people getting absentee ballots, I started off with an additional 8 employees helping where I had them paid. I should say temporary people that I brought on. And then we narrowed it down to about 3. I'm hoping this time that just hiring 2 people to help out will be enough in addition to my staff and leaving it that because now of early voting. The early voting is not going to hit until the last part of, we'll say the month right before the election day, where absentee balloting is going on for an entire month. So I figured I'm estimating 2 helpers right from the beginning and possibly straight through. If not, then, if I don't need those extra 2 people, I can let them go. But I'm being very conservative about what I might need.
So we're adding early voting as a vector, a new vector. So there's in-person, there's absentee, and now early.
Yes.
So why wouldn't the absentee voter just vote early?
We can't guarantee that. Number one, they're away. We have numerous people that go overseas. That's kind of a separate segment of absentees that we do.
Vote early, but they vote absentee.
You can, and the whole first part of the month when absentee ballots are available, there is no early voting. Early voting only is in November, it will only be the 14 days prior. So, and we do have a lot of people that are either overseas, they're, in Florida, they're all over the place. We have some military, so that's still gonna happen.
You're still gonna see a reduction though in absentee ballots.
Right, and that's.
People will choose to do early voting because they know that's an option, but absentee ballot's still gonna be
It's still in existence, and it's basically because you're not gonna be in town. And it's the person's choice, on whether they wanna do early voting or absentee. They haven't, the state has not answered us yet, as to if somebody who comes in the office for an absentee ballot and early voting is happening right across the hall, if I have to send them there or still offer them an absentee ballot. We don't know the answer to that yet.
So you're kind of worst casing it? This is.
I'm thinking, that's the way we've looked at it right now. But again, it's a guessing game because we just don't know. So we have to be prepared for whatever happens.
Nancy, oh, sorry.
Hang on.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, what about primaries? Early voting and absentee ballots? Do policies affect primary?
There will be early voting in primaries. It's a little bit different, it's less days, but we'll still be doing absentee ballots as well.
Okay, and you built that in as well?
We're figuring all that out.
Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'll hop in there. Nancy, this is Jen, are there any age requirements or training that's required for people to help with the processing of absentee ballot applications and sending out the mailers?
No, so, no, so as I'm hiring somebody, we would do the training in my office for the absentee ballot. So no, there's not an age limit that I'm aware of for helping us. Definitely
I guess-
my direction though.
Okay, I guess what I'm wondering is, would there be an opportunity for us to maybe reach out to members of our student government or students that are involved with the exchange club? Would there be any opportunity for them to do these types of things in exchange for service hours?
Possibly putting together packets and things at the beginning, instead of using department staff, yes. When it actually comes to issuing them, though, I would be requiring somebody to sit in front of a computer in my office. And have control over all of the documents staying secure.
Okay.
So, yeah, so that's, I'm like looking for two additional people in my office for that portion of it. I think would be sufficient this year because of early voting. And then the whole issue of early voting is a whole new thing, different.
Learning curve.
Any questions on the absentee portion?
Will it still be no excuse absentee?
It's still the 6 reasons. We're not no excuse yet. So.
But wasn't one of the excuses, I'm just not comfortable being around people? Essentially?
That they changed it from illness to sickness to illness. But the November election will have a question on it so that the reasons will change. So that's going to be coming up.
But that would be for subsequent.
That's later on. That's not this coming fiscal year. Yeah. So that's the town clerk portion of it. And now we go over to the registrars.
Were there any facility costs associated with early voting?
Yes. So we're gonna we'll get into all that. Yes. So we'll jump into that next portion here. If we want to go into.
I just keep going on the line.
Go
That's
down,
in there as
let's
well.
just go down the line items.
Go back to that.
Ann will get into more of this, but the main thing to know is when you're talking about now that we're required to do early voting, you're talking about the registrar's positions, their job descriptions are changing now. And they're going to be requesting some additional financing to accommodate their extra hours. I'll let you go into this one.
We'll end up having to spend all of early voting in the office doing early voting. It's not like we can get high school kids to come in and do it part-time. We can't do that. They can't get into the system. Even our poll workers, if we can get some of those people to come in and kind of help us out, if they don't know what our job is on a daily basis, and they're not gonna learn that in an hour before we give them early voting. We can't leave them on their own, right? So somebody's gotta be there to answer the questions for them. And just like election day, people are gonna come through early voting. 90% of them are gonna be just like people at the polls, right? Show their ID, they get their ballot, they vote, they leave. It's gonna be a handful that come in who aren't registered or, whatever their issue is for the day. And with the presidential preference primary, we'll get the unaffiliated and the Democrats who think they're Republicans and, all of that stuff will have to be worked.
So, but that one that you're talking about is this April.
Yes.
So
yeah,
are
that's
you
not-
funded for that?
Yes,
That's this-
we're gonna be fine for that because it's only
It's 4 days.
4 days.
March, the end of March, and then the primary is actually on the 2nd of April.
It's actually Easter weekend.
Yes, so it's
Oh,
Easter
that's
weekend,
brilliant.
so there's actually, there's 4 days and then there's, they'll have a day off because of Easter. The other thing that I just want to mention too, that Ann is talking about, when they have people working they consider it early voting EV. These people are trained, they have all different levels of experience as well. So I know Jen, like you were asking like about people helping, I don't think in this situation for EV or the polls, you could bring anybody in just to jump in.
Right.
There has to be special training. And again, everybody that's there between who's a moderator, who's handing out ballots, they're all gonna have various training. And I'm gonna say too, this is a combination of being at the polls and absentee balloting. And every town is gonna be working this out individually, based on we'll say, a loose procedure from the Secretary of State's office. But then it's up to us to figure out sort of combining a polling location and doing absentee ballots, and then securing everything. Because they're gonna actually have a ballot in an envelope. It'll be different than absentee, but it'll be going into an envelope and then coming to the town clerk's office at the end of every evening. That's 14 days before November election, to get secured in the town vault.
So just so I understand, what is absolutely required
Staffing wise?
and staffing wise for a day during early voting? Say it's a Monday, a week before the election, 3:00 in the afternoon.
So the early voting handbook or from the Secretary of State's office is requiring that we have a moderator, which is someone who has to be certified. You have 4 people in the registrar's office who are certified moderators, so that's good. And we do have a pool of moderators that we can pull from. And those folks have been around for a while. They're gonna be easier to train than somebody coming off the street. So we have some relief there. And then you're gonna need at least an R and a D for curbside voting, any curbside voting that could come.
I think it's a minimum of 5
Really?
people. So minimum of 5. When we were discussing this, I kept saying, I think they were saying 7. They said, no, 5. And I was like, okay, we'll just try 5, but I think it's 7. The idea and the plan is that we're gonna be using room A. And using that and the registrar's office because of the computers and all the
We have to have access.
Yeah,
to
they have to have
CVRs. Everything,
CVRs, so.
the difference between the polling location and doing early voting, there's no poll book. Everything's done at CVRS. And there's no tabulator, right, as Nancy said. You're filling out a ballot, you're putting it in an envelope, and it's going in a box until it gets counted with all the rest of the absentee ballots on election day.
So as when you come in for an absentee ballot, we're immediately in CVRS and we're keeping track of all of it. They're gonna be doing the exact same thing, going into CVRS and marking it that it's, you were there for early voting and you have voted.
So,
And is the state providing any
So,
support
so
financially?
they did give them, for early voting, a grant of $10,500, which was the exact amount that went to every town. So it didn't matter your size.
Bridgeport, Stanford, Fairfield, same amount of money.
So you can see, when you see the bottom line here, what we're asking, it actually, I think when you're looking at, did it get subtracted out?
It is on the bottom.
That's what we have, and, you know.
you only have to have one location, right?
Yeah, so Madison only has to have one location.
Yes.
Which is good, and because we have the conference room right next to the registrar's office, we're hoping that that works.
So you're confident that you've bracketed the expense with this as best you can. At the end, it's gonna be what it's gonna be, and if you need more, we're gonna give you more.
100%.
When do you think you'll have your process mapped out in advance of the primary? Because you'll have to have it done in advance of the primary, right?
So the Secretary of State did not finalize their procedures yet.
Yeah, we're.
They will be giving them to us hopefully, the beginning of March. Or maybe they said the end of February. The registrars have to come up with their plan and get it to the Secretary of
yes.
State immediately.
Before, yeah.
Yeah, immediately. The Secretary of State said to us yesterday on our conference call, do not ask us what you think you should be doing and what you should be ordering and how you should do it. You're there, you've been there. You're the best ones to answer and make that guess. So I have to say to you that our So I have to say, though, I've sat down with the registrars. I think that Madison should be very proud of them. They put, pen to paper, and they spent a lot of time going through every single thing. They've got pages of documents. They've read through what the procedure currently is. I think that they have worked everything out to, and this is because of experience. I think that they did an incredible job so far. And it has to keep maneuvering as you go and you find something's working, something's not working. And I think that they are the best at doing that.
So
We also have the best moderators in the state.
You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
I would suggest maybe when you're ready to go public with early voting procedure, maybe we call a special meeting just for the purpose of
Explaining it.
Explaining it, and getting it out
Yeah.
into the public in that way. Does the fishbowl have to be quarantined during this week?
What do you mean by quarantine?
Well, is it open,
Can you
is it
have
gonna
a
be
meeting?
available
No.
for other meetings?
No.
No,
No,
we've secured that already.
it's a polling place.
Yes.
So it's off the table for anybody who wants to schedule a meeting during.
I've blocked it all out
Blocked it
already.
out. Okay, good,
Yeah,
that was
we're-
my question is.
Yeah.
But there's a location issue though with, right, if it's open for early voting, can people not go walk by it, or isn't there all this?
So here's the interesting thing. Well, there's a couple things here. Technically, it's not considered a polling location. However, having said that, the registrar of voters will be on the November ballot, so they cannot be moderators right now, in November. They're fine, and we'll get through April and August if there's another primary. But we have to deal with the November situation because they're on the ballot.
And we have the deputies. who
And they
are
have the deputies, so they'll step up. But that's another thing that the state is looking at, and they know that all the towns have registrars on the ballot, so they shouldn't really be in there.
You just swap towns. You
Yeah,
can take
they
the Guilford
could.
registrars
They could.
and send the Madison ones over.
Brilliant, Bruce.
Good.
You could drive the bus to
I
get
can
them
give
there.
you
What doesn't he do?
So,
But the early voting hours, right, they're 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. For the presidential preference primary, all 4 days are 10 to 6. For a primary, if we have one in September, For those 7 days, it's also 10 to 6 with 2 days that are gonna be 8 to 8. And that's gonna be the Tuesday and Thursday before the election. Same with the 14 days. So 2 of those days are gonna be 8 to 8.
And Sundays?
And weekends, Saturday and Sunday.
And again, one of the line items here, is for custodial coverage over the weekends, because the building will be open. The staff that will be here for early voting will not be in any way capable to deal with somebody having a problem in the restroom or lights out, whatever. So one of the things on here is that they really have to have custodial coverage on the weekends. So they have thought about, about everything that I can think of. That's in here. They have discussed, but they have not heard back specifics, but they have thought about the fact that they may need security at times. So that's here in the budget. And again, this is just for early voting. The rest of their budget will remain the same for, election day. For the most part.
So all these additional budget requests, right, are things that in theory are variable costs, right? We could say no to them. But it doesn't look like we can say no to these.
You're gonna say no to voters voting?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't seem like really a request.
That's the bottom line,
Yes.
right?
For the
This is
record, I want
ultimately
everybody to vote, Scott. I don't want to say no to voting.
access to people voting, that's a good
But I guess my
thing.
point is it's not a request.
No, it's not a
cost.
request, but I think we can also, as we go through the budget deliberations, how much do we want to build into the budget considering it's an unknown, right? We might want to say, hey, let's handle this half of it appropriation wise, because it could be worse than this, right? Or it could be half of this, depending on how things shake out. So so I think we have to decide what we want to actually put in the budget versus fund. We have to fund all of it. We have to fund whatever the need
And
is,
every
right?
year is different, right? So
Yeah.
this year's special, we have the presidential preference primary. I get it, it's not in this particular budget, but it's there. Then you have another primary in September, maybe, maybe not. And then you have November, and then you have May, and anything in between. May's not early voting.
Yeah, so that's,
I know.
And
I
this,
think I would be an advocate of budgeting what is reasonably gonna be expected and then funding the overage with an appropriation.
agreed. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to go through and figure this out,
I do think when you look at this, though, that the registrars, I know that I think they worked with the finance department, and I think that they're very accurate with what they've asked for and reasonable. One of the things that was in here too was that they had asked for the stipends to return to cover their additional costs, because those had been removed, but with them working all these additional hours, and for like town meetings, if it's over a certain amount, they did ask for some stipends on that.
I think I would
And if we find
also,
that early voting isn't as popular as everybody thinks it might be, maybe we don't need the staffing level that we have, and we can scale that back.
But I'm a little confused though, because what is the required staffing if we're open? You're
So
saying
that-
5 people?
There's no hard and fast requirement. They don't say you need to have 5 people.
Okay.
Every-
So that's what I think,
every
really, that's where I'm like, maybe, I mean, can you just have one person sitting in the registrar's office?
No, so just minimal. If you have somebody requesting curbside voting, 2 people have to go out, one from both parties. And you can't leave the room unattended. So just right off the bat, you need 3 people, minimum,
And it can't be these guys because they may be on the ballot.
possibly, correct.
Oh, that's only
like
November.
that you've rolled the extra janitorial expense into this budget, as opposed to adding it to the existing facility budget. I would also say for police, if you're gonna be requesting police presence, that it all gets wrapped up in this and does not get assimilated into the normal operating budget of those
I was
It is
just trying to
in
get
there.
facilities just to cover it for free, but that didn't work
Right.
out,
No,
so.
You understand the point I'm making?
Yeah, they're both in here.
Yeah.
But they don't show up in those departments that we're drawing on them as a resource. We're not adding a resource to the operating line.
Well, we were
So you have
talking
full
though
total
about,
cost.
is there, because we have custodial come in at different times anyway, so I was trying to understand, is this like an expectation that we just cover, it's gonna be 2 weekends a year, or 3 weekends a year that we have to add custodial service? Do we need to really budget for that? Can that just be absorbed in the budget? But we itemized it here to talk about that, so that's a discussion that we will have about how we wanna cover it.
It seems like there should have been more, I mean, this is not a new concept, right? It's been in many other states for a very long time. So it's disheartening that there was not more direction given.
They didn't think of that when they voted for it, did they?
But I think we're also more unique, we have a very decentralized system. So they're trying to come, what's gonna work town by town, I mean, we have a very decent 169 places, so we don't have county, so we're, that's where it does become problematic, and you have a small town, if you gotta have those three, you could be 20,000, 40,000, right, people, that base cost is gonna be there no matter how big your town is, so. I think what was surprising was the length, I was like, 14 days, I mean, so it's 2 weekends, I mean, that's a long time. To have to cover, and I know they had a lot of debate about it, but that was how it landed, I think a lot of people were expecting like 7 days. Yeah, 5 or 7, so.
And then election day.
Yeah.
Another short day.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if it translates into higher participation.
Or burnout of the staff.
Well, that's the other thing, because they'll be rotating for early voting, but then, right, they get done with early voting, and then they have to work all day Monday to do everything they need to do to make sure the polling locations are set up. They have to do the logs, and then they're there from
At like 4 a.m.
5,
they get there, right?
straight through, and then they're lucky if we all get out of here, especially on election day at midnight. So it's a lot on them. It's asking a lot.
In theory, the traffic may be lower on election day, right,
You
because.
still have to process.
But you
all the
still have to
ballots.
be there.
Yeah, you have to do the ballots.
And the absentee balloting, the counting of absentee and EV is, that's gonna be enormous.
Yeah, but if you're treating it like a poll, you just start running them through an election, right?
It's, what, the numbers that they're probably gonna look at is probably what we did in 2020, if we're combining our numbers, then that's probably what they're looking at, like it was in 2020.
But 2020 had COVID. So I think.
So it might be a little
It
lower,
doesn't-
but.
But it's a heavy
What I
target,
learned
people
is
will be out to vote.
This isn't really an early voting system as much as it's an in-person absentee ballot filing system.
Call it that,
Just
because it won't be counted.
People are showing up physically to
Yes.
file an absentee ballot.
To do a ballot in an envelope that will get counted on election day, similar to an absentee ballot, correct? Right. And everything has to be kept separate.
Those were.
Well, that's how this is, but unfortunately, the way the Constitution was set up, it requires this massive 3 to 5 year process to change the voting process, right? So they're kind of behind.
Yeah.
That's why they're, it would have been, in retrospect, having gone through COVID, to do the absentee ballot thing first, right? And just have no excuse absentee ballot and never go to early voting. But the way the timing worked out and then COVID hit, because no one voted absentee before until COVID,
And
really.
now
It was
people
very
love
small
it.
numbers,
They did. No,
They did, but it was
did.
not anywhere near what people did during COVID.
Well, not during 2020,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
That was, but, so we're sort of, we're gonna have to see how this works out.
Yeah, it's.
And we have to be prepared for it, because we don't know which way it'll go.
Right.
So we're covering all bases.
Well, I think public education is gonna be critical, absolutely. I want to thank the registrars and the town clerk for putting as much thought and detail into the proposal.
Yes,
So-
I think, yeah, that's a big deal.
You know, that's what we do. It's our jobs. All right,
Thank
you.
thank you. And thank you to the finance department, especially Chris. Chris is always super helpful, so.
Stacy, not so much.
Not so much.
Yes. Chris is
Bye, guys, thank you.
Good night.
See ya.
Sorry.
Something like that. Stacy, hello. Yeah. And then this morning, Katie's like, listen to you two. It's not always roses. It's not always roses. It's like sisters. That's what it is. I love it. Hi, Scott.
Projects.
That's for last. Hi, Scott.
The state should.
You gotta put the word family.
before
Yeah,
you.
we gotta, or put Madison.
I should do Madison.
I'll do Madison. Next year, we will do Madison first.
How about A Madison?
A Madison.
What page?
138.
Thank you, dear.
Oh.
So hi, everybody.
He's been sitting so long.
In 10 minutes after you all just ate pizza, so that's really great. That bodes well for me. And I don't have a baby.
Puppy.
Not one with me.
You brought
You have Andrea.
I have two of the best board members, though. Dave Fuller, who's the chair of our board, and Andre Aaron, who I think you all, I think you all know both of them. And they're here to support myself in the department. And so I do have a PowerPoint presentation. It's very short, I assure you. It helps kind of keep me organized and on track. I actually have what I think is a relatively small additional request that I need to make of you. And my concern is really two major concerns as to why I'm approaching this conversation like this. One is that when it comes to youth and family services, we're a bit of an oddball as a town department. So not everybody always understands exactly why we're doing or what we're doing. So it's always, I feel, my responsibility to help kind of walk people through exactly what we're doing, the value of it. The other part is that since it is a relatively small additional request, I'm just afraid, particularly in this kind of budget environment that we're in this year, that it could look like some low hanging fruit. And without really understanding what this little bit of money means to us, you might make a decision that would have a much bigger implication for our department for how we run. So with your indulgence, I'll just walk you through things. Okay. So that's our tiny little building. We have three major divisions under youth and family services: positive youth development. That's all of our prevention work, our clinical services. We run Madison social services out of our department. With that is encompassed in what we call community support. So that includes our social services, but we also run our drug and alcohol coalition under community support. What we do is defined in state statute. So we're known as a youth service bureau. As far as the state started defining these to create some concept around them and structure way back in the 1970s. Essentially, as we fall under the statute and operate under the statute, we are charged with being responsible for assessing the needs of our community and essentially being a hub. We're sort of the operating hub. We're supposed to know what's going on as it relates to youth and families. And it's not that we have to meet every single need. Our responsibility is to understand what those needs are and then to work towards meeting them. Whether it's there's stuff that we're doing or it's stuff that we're collaborating with other people in the community or other agencies in the community. And we're one of 102 YSBs across the state. In terms of a few of our budget highlights, we've kept a level, at least that's what we're presenting with so far, a level operational budget. We've worked really hard just to reallocate things between accounts. We have a single additional request that's connected to our parent support counseling position. That's one of our clinical positions. And just so you know, like we do pay very close attention to everything that we're doing in terms of our funding. So like it is important to us to track the grants that we are applying for, the grants that we have and we're managing.
The two areas that we really focus on nowadays that we have maybe a little bit more, I want to say, influence over are our clinical revenue, which is based on what we make out of our counseling services, and believe it or not, our social services. And I'll explain more about that in a minute. I wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what we're doing in terms of helping offset our costs. So this is a short list, and I just took last fiscal year as an example, so you'd have, the full year as to understand. But our clinical revenue for all of the last fiscal year was $120,000. And I'll show you another slide in terms of how that's been going up incrementally. We have, we operate under the state statute, we get a main grant, that's a matching grant from the state, that gets applied to offset salary of a salary within our department. That enhancement grant, state supplement, that's close to $18,000. That money has to be spent on providing some direct program or service. And in our case, we spend that money on contractual staff that do counseling for us. That little workforce alliance, that's a larger grant that we use to spend towards our summer youth employment program. That little bit of money is what we get to administer that particular grant. The scope grant, that is connected to our additional requests, and I'll show you more about that. That's a state grant that we've been getting forever. The scope grant is actually administered through the school system. So they get a larger chunk, and we get approximately $50,000 to do the parent support counseling. And we have made, that's our Drug and Alcohol Coalition, the STOP grant, that's an alcohol prevention grant. We're in our third year of that. It's actually a 3-year grant. And a small local prevention grant. And those two funds we use towards substance abuse prevention. That's a lot of programming that goes directly into the youth in school and the community. But essentially, if you add all this up, it's about 27% of what was our operating budget in 2023. Also to point out, in terms of social services, we have worked in terms of partnering with community charitable organizations. And this is something we've been building and building over many, many years. So in 2023, we facilitated $75,000 from charitable organizations and funneled that directly to programs that helped with heating assistance, emergency housing, food insecurity. So that's the charity, the generosity of Madison that is really trusting us and our social services to properly administer that money and get it to people who really need it. So the biggest charitable organization is Neighbor to Neighbor, but not to overlook Madison JCs and the Exchange Club as two other local organizations that have given very generously for us. This is a slide of our clinic revenue. So that this top bar, we have in our clinic what we refer to as our outpatient clinic clients. These are people that are kids that are seeking services in a traditional outpatient mental health capacity. So what you have on this top, this is the number of clients that we've had in our clinical services. And this bottom, this green line, is our clinic revenue. So what is important to point out here, where we were not as good in terms of collecting the revenue, we've now really narrowed this gap. So where we have about the same amount of clinic clients that we're able to manage, our revenue is continuing to go up. And that's because of how we're running our clinic. And I'll go into more of that in a minute. If I had just one more year, this line is going to increase over this line. So we are well ahead in this year on our clinic revenue. So for like last year, all of last year, we made $120,000. As of this date, we're just about at $100,000 in terms of our clinic revenue. And I'll explain more why in a second.
So again, just
go ahead.
If you go back to the slide, so you've got two lines crossing, but they're on two different scales.
Yes.
So
But what
their crossing isn't necessarily.
Well, what I hope it shows to you is that where we're basically providing, the same amount of service to the same amount of clients, we're now increasing the amount of revenue that we're making.
So clearly your trend does say that, right?
Yes.
Your trend says that. I think if you wanted to talk about the crossing, you might do dollars of revenue per client served. But it clearly shows that you're getting better at capturing as much
Yes.
of the available revenues. I'm assuming that's state money?
No,
That's
that's.
it's insurance of all
That's
types?
insurance and our fee scale. And we don't, and we still are open, we will work with any parent, any situation, so we can provide the service without, making it impossible or harder for them to pay for their service.
And when you have a client that is on Husky or private insurance, you're able to collect the same professional fee that a private provider does.
Correct.
So we're not discounting that at
No.
all.
Nope.
How many client visits do those people?
So I could
represent?
get you a session number. So we have electronic records, and I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head. But if you want, I'm happy to talk to you offline and I can give you numbers on sessions.
Well, it might make your numbers look even better.
Yeah.
On the revenue side, comparing it to the revenue.
Yeah.
So Scott, to Bruce's point, so that's roughly around $1,100 per person per year, based on what you're showing.
With that, yes, yeah. So that was 100, and I think that represented 114 clients that we served on that chart.
So that's probably 10 to 15 visits on average.
I wouldn't want even, because it's all different, we may have, within that number, you could have somebody where we saw it 2 or 3 times, and somebody we saw.
Oh, yeah, I'm talking averages.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
But
could somebody
what I'm
that's
saying,
ongoing
I
every
wouldn't,
week.
off the top of my head, give you a competent average. So just to move on, the additional, so this is just our organizational chart, so you can have an idea of how our organized. This is our clinic. Our additional request is for our parent support and counseling position. In terms of what we're doing differently that helps us grow our revenue is actually right here. So we have these 2 boxes and they represent, one is our contractual staff. So we have 4 part-time contractual clinicians that do get paid off that grant and some town money, as well as this year we have 6 interns that we have working with us. So to understand, having basically low cost and interns who are essentially free, we're able to provide more services. So we have more slots, more bodies to do the work without incurring a huge additional cost to the town. And we're able to do this largely because we've got a great assistant director for our clinic who is in charge of all this and oversees it, as well as that's Angela Hearn, as well as our office manager, Sharon Clark, who kind of is the glue for all of us. What is also important to point out that in order to have this many contractual staff and this many interns, you have to tie each intern to having somebody who's supervising them. And that's a lot of burden to put on just 1 or 2 people. So we do have, for example, Erin Corbett, who's one of our school-based clinicians. And so last year she had responsibility throughout the year for about 4 interns, not all at the same time, but so Erin, in terms of her work, she has a small outpatient caseload. Her revenue was about $7,000 just for the work that was done directly under her. But when you have 4 interns, then you have she had anywhere from another 20 to 30 clients that were served, and that equated to about another $40,000 in terms of revenue. So it's helping us, and just to point this out, the need, it gets us more bodies, more spots, more people served in this way, and it also helps us in terms of collecting the third-party revenue and the fees to offset the costs. You probably all know, but we are still in a mental health crisis. We are still getting a lot of calls and a lot more complicated cases and number of cases than we've had. Well, I'm very proud to say, and again, this is credit to how the clinic is running, we don't have a waiting list now. A year ago, I would have, standing here, I would have told you we probably had anywhere from like 10 to 15 families on the waiting list. So as we've been able to use more interns and more contractual, we don't have a waiting list now. We're increasing the revenue and we're meeting the need. Matt, did you have a question?
Two questions. With intern billing, is it the same amount? Is the billing going to the supervisor?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
so
it gets billed through the license of the supervisor.
Okay. Who does your billing? Is that,
That's our office manager, Sharon.
okay, so it's all in-house?
Yep, all in-house. And a capacity that we've built over time. So parent support counselor, it's important for you to know, this is somebody who's a master's level, it's a licensed person or a license eligible. This is somebody who's trained for early childhood development and within family systems. They specialize in parenting and family therapy. This is key to understand that anything that's happening in the office in terms of therapy for a young child, you also need to help the parent, as well as in some cases, the school, to understand like what you're doing and why. So it's one of the reasons why you don't have a lot of early childhood therapists out in the community. We're picking up this need because it's very hard in terms of like clinical work to work, or I should say more complicated to work with younger children. You have to understand play therapy. You have to be able to speak and interact and engage with a child around their therapy. And then you need to be able to talk to an adult who's a parent, help them understand. So it tends to be more time intensive, more case management needy. And so it's not as simple as maybe as working with an adult. And as a result, about half of the family therapy sessions that we've provided just in this year, it's about 342 family therapy sessions that we've counted. Half of them are provided through our parent support counselor. And just in general, this person also can provide individual therapy, groups, case management, advocacy, coordination with school. And I now need to describe to you what that SCOPE grant is. So that $15,000 grant is administered through the school. It's called the SCOPE grant. The SCOPE is an acronym. This is a collaborative model. So you have Liz Battaglia, who is the special ed director for the town, for the Madison Public School System, a elementary school social worker, a nurse, a pediatrician, who happens to be Dr. John Stein. They form what we refer to as the SCOPE team that includes also our parent support counselor. When there's a elementary age student who is showing anything in terms of a social, emotional, difficult or a behavioral issue with the school can offer to a parent support counselor. What this means is that you have somebody who can, on a voluntary basis, this is all a voluntary program, can work with the parent, can assess the child, can work with the parent, the school team, get a better understanding of what's going on for that child, and then work in a very comprehensive way to help that child. So what we have, especially since the pandemic, is a lot more kids who have what we refer to as mood dysregulation for lots of different reasons, and I won't go into details, but many more kids now, younger kids who don't know how to quite manage themselves in certain environments, which is very stressful to parents, it's very stressful to the kids, it's very stressful to the school. So the SCOPE program is our parent support counselor utilize a very comprehensive model to understand the student and provide services. The SCOPE grant, as it's $15,000, is only a chunk of that position, but what we do is under that SCOPE program, we don't charge parents separately. So like they're not getting charged from their insurance and also on the grant. The grant covers the assessment as well as what are typically 4 to 8 sessions or so of treatment under the grant. And the grant we've had forever. That makes sense to everybody? All right. So if you want to go ahead, we'll fill in the rest of this slide. So just an idea, these are kind of the 5 areas in which the parent support counselor functions. You could expect about 20 to 25 SCOPE cases that I just described. Go ahead, Gene. Moving this from part-time to full-time allows us to also use this as an individual therapist and still do family work and then bill for that. So the additional hours that we are able to do making this full-time allows that person to also carry about 10 to 15 cases in a fiscal year. This person can also at full-time be better situated to provide some groups. So there's a couple of groups this year that our parent support counselor has done. One is referred to as Moms on the Move. This is a group of moms with very young children it's a walking group. It's been been pretty effective and well received. The other one is a series of youth social skills. These are what we're referring to zones of regulation. And this is the model that the school uses. So we run these programs and use the consistent curriculum that the school is using. So it helps the kids who are in those groups to understand what we're trying to do with them. And you can click one more time. So this person is also an expert on an early childhood as well as a member of our team. So they can consult with parents, they can consult with schools and pediatricians, as well as help us as a staff bring their expertise, and it supports it it helps all of us. Go ahead. So how we got here, and this is really critical. We had the same parents for counselor since like 1995. That was Marge Adler. So this position at the time when we had this grant, so it was a 29-hour-a-week position. So imagine you all know that at 29 hours, it's just an hour short of full time. So Marge was with us for 20 years, and she's kind of like an icon. She's a fantastic person. And she probably worked about 40 hours a week and didn't care about what she got paid for. This was a passion for her. So I think didn't quite, not that we took her for granted, but I think, so when she left, the position was really much bigger than we could sustain based on the funding. So as I said, it's a pretty comprehensive, complex job that was essentially drastically underpaid, and there was no other benefits to it. It wasn't full-time, so you couldn't really recruit and retain people because it was a better position. So from 2016 up until about 2020, we had 3 people who funneled in and out of that position. And just so you know, in order for us to maintain the grant, we still had to provide this position. So then we had to cobble together, we took Marge out of retirement a couple times. We had to cobble together from other staff people, which took them away from other clinic cases. So it had a ripple effect. Where we couldn't maintain the position, we then had to pull internally for resources to fill it. And if we didn't, we would have lost the grant, which also is, helpful to the position overall. We made a request in 2020, just a few ticks before the whole world went to crap. And we were, at that time, the request was deferred in lieu of a larger study that was proposed to be done on our agency and our clinic. And just the short of that is that it was completed, and they did actually support, as a part of the question, this position becoming full-time. And I have the report, we can share it with people. We're not able to get it back to you and back in, for consideration for the budget. So we made use of ARPA funding. That was fun to request for a position that you knew you were still going to have to come back to and ask for town funding later on. But we did get ARPA funding. So this position has actually been full-time for basically the last 2 years. We didn't always have it filled. That didn't happen until last February. But we've had this position going full-time. So we have really a good indication now of what it can do and how we can fund it. So in last February, Marissa Sierra, as our parents for counselor, she's phenomenal, and we really want to keep her. We really think she'll bring quite a bit of stability to our department. She already is. And here's why I'm here. So in 2024, the ARPA money that we have runs out. So in terms of the next fiscal year, we can pay the differential to make this full-time and maintain it with ARPA funding until January of 2025. And then the last half of the fiscal year, and you can move ahead. We need a grand total of $6,379.75. So that's the request. So to be clear, it's the salary differential. It makes it part-time to full-time, and is the remaining ARPA funding to help us. And it transitioned. The nice thing about if we are able to do this year, it transitions it nicely into the budget. If I had to ask for the full amount, I'd be asking for $12,000, which obviously is a bigger hit. This allows us to come off of ARPA funding, and I just feel like it's a little smoother going in. We also can show that we have the scope grant still tied to this position. And based on real numbers, we know at a minimum, this position with the additional outpatient revenue that it can generate is going to bring in about $20,000 a year. And I trust me when I say that that's a minimum. that allows us to increase it. And as I said, it was supported by that study, and you can go ahead twice. So in terms of the cost right now, this revenue is about 55% of what the town is paying for the position as it's funded in the book next year. So we can show you over half of an offset. We can also look, and click one more time. We can also look at this position looking into the future. So I'm aware from Liz that we have an opportunity to request more money from the scope grant. Now, it's a little tricky because what I'd be doing is saying we're going to increase this to full time. However, if I'm not sure that you're going to approve this being full time, I don't know how I'm going to say that. So I have to work with Liz, and I think that we can put in a request for about $5,000 to add to that number. The other thing we can think about once Marissa is fully licensed is Marissa is able to take an intern, which I would suspect at some point that she will. You can look at that again, like the same way we did with our other staff, can now generate more client spots and more revenue to bring to the table. If people have any questions about any of that?
So if I read this correctly, with a high confidence level that you could get the grant, you're really asking for $1,300.
Well, it's a full year, so I'm not sure how you want to parse it out.
Well, and according to the math, you're asking for $6,300.
I don't know that I'm gonna get this. So I'm telling you, I'm gonna ask and see if we can get the request in. I don't want to make a promise, Bruce, that I don't know.
Okay.
This just came up this week. I feel good about it, but I can't promise you. But
just so I understand though, so 6,300 is a roll off, but there's another 6,300 in the next year that we would see.
so this is
It's
a
only a $12,000, half of that is being covered by ARPA right now,
correct,
right?
and
That's
yep,
what
into next
reminds
budget year.
Yeah, the bill really comes due on the 25-26 budget.
Right.
And it's in there full time. And my hope is that we can grow the position and continue to grow the revenue to help continue to offset the cost to the town. That's the idea.
And Scott, unfortunately, I don't think that's gonna be an issue because now all of the kids that were born during COVID are 3 and 4 years old and they in their formative, bonding years were surrounded by masks, not seeing words, not seeing expression, and I know in my work, we're seeing a lot of that age group really struggling socially and emotionally, so.
And it's
It'll be
interesting because you see an impact of the pandemic for where it impacted the kid at that stage of development. So you're seeing impacts largely across for how current freshmen and current sophomores and juniors, and you can kind of go back to their stage of development where they were at the time of the pandemic, and you can see more obvious sort of population-wide impacts.
My freshman in college now is acting more, socially acts more like a sophomore, so you definitely see it. It's fascinating, but
All right, we're almost there, everybody, I promise. This is just, again, another depiction of what we're dealing with in terms of referrals. So the blue is of client inquiries, that's 10 and younger. And this orange is from ages 11 to 14. And then these are older children that are older that were referred, sorry. Just to kind of give, if I had this chart, say maybe 10 years ago, it would have been flipped. We almost provided exclusively treatment and services to teenagers and middle school and teenager and up. We're now in the reverse. And that's been that's, as you can see, that's been the trend, particularly around going in and out of the pandemic. And even this is half year this year, where almost the vast majority of our cases are now kids under 10. There's a lot of studies and a lot of support for early intervention. So I threw some things on here that we found in terms of our own research. It really just emphasizing the importance of more comprehensive outreach and early intervention to children and the importance of a more of a collaborative approach to early intervention. And pointing out, according to, I think we got this from the CDC, about 20% of children who need services actually receive services. So where you have to understand that when kids are acting out, it's not always understood in terms of its mental health or what maybe is perhaps going on for that child. And, for lots of different reasons and factors, sometimes kids don't get help. And there's a huge cost to that when you think about what happens to a child with unmet mental health needs. So now you're having potentially more crisis interventions or things that are needed, the more staffing resources that are required by school, the potential risk for suicide, self-injury, lots of things. So where you don't identify and meet a mental health need, you often have a greater risk for a lot of other things that cost money, that wind up costing us all a great deal of money. And there's quite a bit of research now that can actually connect what may be a dollar spent on early intervention and prevention, and for what it then may save you down the line. And depending on what the program is, it could be anything from where like you spend $1 on early intervention, you may be saving $5, $6, $7 for other costs. And I can explain more about that, but I know everybody's tired, so I don't want to. What's really important is in terms of those interventions are very specific and targeted. So if you are, in our case, we are trying to intervene with kids at a point where we can get them and create more of a collaboration rather than kids who maybe have unmet needs wind up parents having to be more adversarial either with the school system or other systems, which costs money and time and lots of energy. So to wrap up, you can click forward 2 things. So our part-time parent support counselor, we've got the same capacity to do the scope work, but more limited outpatient caseload, limited groups, and potential for turnover, and more of a limit towards what we can bring back in offsets. The capacity for full-time, the capacity for scope is still there, but we can have a higher outpatient caseload, capacity for groups, overall stability, and more potential for development, and $35,000 or more in terms of offsets. I feel like a salesman.
Sorry.
And this is my shameless plug. We're going to be doing a State of the Youth address on February 1st. This is our presentation of the high school survey data, which is also very interesting, as it always is. So with that, I'll just shut up. If you guys have any questions.
I think it was pretty comprehensive. So.
Very well.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank you for such a thorough and well presentation. And both of you for coming here and spending the past 3 hours.
They did get free pizza.
Paid once, you pay me.
So I do have a question, and my background is hospital finances, and we're all about RVUs, and there's no margin, there's no mission. So you showed a graph that showed kids or children or people served, and then the revenues, and you're showing how the lines are converging on them. Do you feel there's more opportunity to offset because revenue, because this is, your budget's almost $1 million, right? And then great offsets, but are there opportunities for better billing? Because you've shown improvement.
So, I mean, we can bill for our clinical services, the things that I didn't talk in any real detail about our prevention and all largely our prevention services. So there's, we've looked at things in terms of what we could bill for our school-based counselors. So that's an area that we can explore. We're very open to whatever we can find and then streamlining and being as efficient as possible. So we're trying that. We are absolutely trying. We understand the cost of these things, but we also understand the value of what we're doing and the prevention work that we're doing. And I could spend another half an hour talking about that in terms of its effectiveness and what we're able to do and what we're able to reach. And God forbid what would happen if we're not doing that work, because nobody else is. All righty then, on that note. But I do appreciate all your time, and I know that that was lengthy, and just hope you'll consider our additional requests.
Great.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, well, I don't know if we have attendees. We lost our home-based attendees. Some of them, come on, we just got to dinner.
Is that all brother Mike's?
For attendees again, so, well, Jeannie, no one, if you were an attendee, I noticed Jen is on there, but no hands, or I guess you don't know, okay. All right, well, thank you very much, we're gonna be ending today, soon, we have another one on Monday, so.